Holy crap. Now I can hear myself.
Uh-oh. You did the classic have YouTube open in a second tab with audio, didn't you? Classic
This is why
mistake.
it's called Restream, right?
Yeah, you get to hear yourself think. You get to hear yourself think, so then you can argue with yourself.
What the heck is going on?
Let's get some bell delay.
What the heck is going on around here, Trusty Apeco, is a very impromptu live stream that we're doing right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Am I still hearing your audio?
Wait a minute.
No?
I don't know.
Sorry, I'm just trying to fill the dead air.
That's the sweet girl.
It'll be coming around the audio when it comes.
They'll be coming around the live stream when they come. They'll be coming around the live stream when they come. Well, thank you for liking the show, Trusty Apeco. Much appreciated.
Okay. Let me see. I'm gonna close. Okay, I closed Riverside.
Okay.
Did it work,
Okay.
though?
Okay. Maybe that was me. Maybe that was me with live stream.
Maybe.
Nope, never mind.
Is it me, or is it one of us? Because if it was one of us...
Do you hear anyone else twice, or just yourself? Because I only hear everyone else once. Including, I don't hear myself, so I don't know.
Okay, hold up a sec. Oh,
Can you do Black Trumpet next?
Maybe-
No.
I think it was my tab open. It was a separate tab.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I'm sorry, I'm done.
Wonderful beginnings. Uno momento, por favor, fi favore.
Oh, favole! We need the meme.
Arriba, arriba, arriba. It's good content, everybody.
We are professional grade.
We set the standard, okay?
We do.
That's what we
really
do. Now, what that standard is yet to be determined, but it is a
We set-
standard.
We have
standard.
finally once and for all proved that the death penalty is necessary in society.
That potentially, yes, potentially.
I might try this one again here, ladies and gentlemen. If we can, if we go a little bit longer here, I might start another live stream. And
We'll trim. We'll trim it.
that's true. I guess we can do that. That's a good point.
Yeah, you can just cut it off the back end. I'll just reintroduce myself when we start, and then
Yeah.
we'll just, we'll
We'll
just like
pretend like
pretend.
this never happened.
We'll pretend none of this ever happened, and you just cut the front end off of it.
Sounds good on this side. Well, Trusty Apeco, it sounds good on this side because that's the level of professional integrity that you come to expect on this channel. Definitely not a channel that periodically messes up its own intro and has like 37 seconds of dead air. Definitely not. This is quality content on the Ayden Linden channel.
Yeah, I still need to like work through doing my intro and all that. Of course, doing an intro requires getting here in time to do that. And recently, when I'm going to do streams, it's like last minute, like, hey everybody, I'm here.
All right. So I think we're all good. All systems go. We shall begin. Hello,
Alrighty.
welcome to Reexamination, MoeRebuttal, the Chapingro, and Ayden Linden's live stream on the theory of government. This all began a while ago when Mo and I were reviewing the JL stream over tacos at the Missing Mod podcast. When we were talking about theory of government in general, specifically democracy and voting, and that's where this all began. And my thought was that democracy, the function of voting in a democracy, or at least having a democratic component to your government, was to serve us as a role of the voice of the people in the government. Now, Ayden had a more nuanced approach to that, so I am interested in what all these three gentlemen had to say. But I think Ayden, since he requested this sort of a dialogue, should be the one to kick us off with his theory of government and how that works, starting with voting.
Yeah, so I would say that voting, while it does serve as a good means of giving people representation as far as allowing their policies to be brought forth to the government for review and possible passing when it comes to the implementation of that policy in a wider social context. I think all that is very important when it comes to voting, but I think that that is best expressed in a more direct democratic kind of sense, as opposed to the abstracted system that I see in places like America, where rather than voting directly for the candidate at hand, you would, for example, vote for an elector who then is going to vote for your candidate, or possibly not vote for your candidate, depending on what state you're in. Because there are certain states where the elector can just vote however the heck they want, regardless of who they were told to vote for. So I think direct democracy, where people are able to directly vote for their candidate, is probably the best implementation of a voting system, I would say. Any kind of abstraction where you have a middleman in the way that kind of gets to dictate how your vote is used or implemented, I think is counterproductive. But I won't get into too much about that. I'll let other people talk as well. Thank you.
Okay, so question on that. When you say that you view voting as a good thing, it's something that we should strive for. So you're for universal adult suffrage?
Yes, I'm for universal adult suffrage.
Okay. I think that's where we would probably disagree then.
Okay. What would be your source of disagreement for that?
Well, if you look at the founding, like founding fathers, and you look at the Federalist papers, like Federalist number 55, there's a quote in there that's talked about quite a bit by James Madison. He says a Republican government presupposes the existence of those qualities, virtue, in a higher degree than any other form. So, right here, Madison explicitly states that a republic depends on a more virtuous population than any other form of government. John Adams also is quoted as saying, "Our Constitution was made only for moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." So Adams flat out says that the Constitution doesn't work without a moral population. And I think that is one of the key issues with this whole experiment we're doing with, this whole voting system that we currently have. It's the universal suffrage. I think it's ridiculous that a 18-year-old OnlyFans girl can cancel out a vote of a 45-year-old father with 4 children, right? I think that's just ridiculous.
And by what standard would you say that the voice of that OnlyFans girl would mean less than the father?
Because she doesn't know what the fuck she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing. She doesn't have any idea of political, how government should work, how laws should work.
And how do you quantify that?
What do you mean how I quantify that? You think you think an 18-year-old OnlyFans girl has the same level of experience and understanding of political government as someone who's older and maybe more invested?
I'm saying that that's very easy to understand on an anecdotal level, but on an institutional level, that's where that kind of system would fall apart, because how do you quantify that on an institutional level?
Well, okay, do you think the founding fathers kind of understood what they were doing when they put this whole thing together?
I think that the founding fathers certainly understood some aspects of what they were doing. I think that they also understood that I believe it was either Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson who advocated that the Constitution of the United States be revised periodically so that people are not made slaves of the past and that institutions are allowed to evolve and change with the times.
But speaking of voting, though, like the founding fathers never wanted everyone to vote.
Right, and I think that is wrong in the same way that I think the fact that George Washington thought that people were able to be property was wrong. I think there was plenty of things that the founding fathers got very wrong.
Yeah, but how? So you think that the current system is sustainable?
I think the current system is not sustainable, but I don't think that it is unsustainable for the reason that you laid out.
Well,
I think it's unsustainable due to corporatist lobbying.
No, well, okay, yeah, but that plays into it, right? It's the voting system is basically a popularity contest. That's basically what it like if when you break it down, like voting, democracy, it's dependent on the quality of the voter. Ultimately.
I would agree with that to a certain extent, but I would say that part of what makes a moral society is a society that allows anybody to be able to achieve that. Because let me ask you, that 18-year-old OnlyFans girl, she goes to, let's say she goes to a nunnery or a convent for a couple of years, and she really gets some knowledge under her belt. You know, she figures things out. She gets a head on her shoulders. She really knows what she's doing now with herself. What institution does she go to? What test does she take? Where on an institutional level, she would then be enfranchised to vote, whereas she was not enfranchised before. That's my main sticking point with this, is that it's just...
No, I don't think she should vote ever. I don't think she should vote.
You don't think she should vote ever? No, I think that's ridiculous. I'm sorry to say.
Well, no, it's not ridiculous.
Mo, do you agree with the founding fathers that the vast majority of men should not have the right to vote?
Yeah, I'm for reducing suffrage across the board.
No, is that a property owner's model you're espousing?
Well, it's a few different. So yeah, originally you had to have some skin in the game until later it was changed. It was I think it was Andrew Jackson. He changed it. Instead of having, he basically removed the property requirement for voting, and then he just like left only expanded to basically all white males. So he kind of did the exact opposite of what he should have done. He should have like removed the white males part and left the skin in the game part. So you can have, I would even say that having a system where people have skin in the game to some degree, whether that's through service, ownership, property, whatever metric you want to use that actually shows some sort of that your buy-in to this system would be a better system than, you know, what we currently have, where it's just like everyone gets to vote.
Could I pose an possibly interesting thing? Because I know it usually goes to like either property owners only or sometimes strictly men only. Would it be a stake in the game if the wives didn't want a draft and didn't want the husband sent to war forcibly? Would that have skin in the game for them?
Well, that's actually, I would actually really quick before.
Well, when I say skin in the game, I mean investment in something. Like you're investing in the government, so like through civil service, something of that nature. But here's a kick in the head, though. I'll just kind of like state this. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I actually am more for a monarchy. I think a monarchy would be much better. I think a correctable, more specifically, a correctable monarchy.
Well, I mean, you know what? I'll get into that in just a moment. There's a lot to unpack there. So, starting with the idea that, would you advocate for the only people that are allowed to be drafted and forcibly serve in the military then are also people who have skin in the game? The only people that have to join the army are people that are property owners.
Well, that was the reason for what was the 26th Amendment. The idea was like to lower the voting age to 18. It's like if you can go to war, you should be able to vote, right? So I think that was a complete, like the idea there was kind of there, but they did it the wrong way. It's like, no, you shouldn't just lower the age across the board. If the guys are drafted and they're serving, yeah, sure. That might be a criteria you could say that they would be allowed to vote.
But I'm asking though, would you draft people that are unable to vote into serving in the American military, or would the draft only apply to people who are capable of voting?
Well, see, I'm giving the olive branch of saying like that's one thing. That's not what I'm advocating for ultimately. But I will say that a government structure is never going to really give up a draft, like the ability to draft, like for like keeping the nation
right. But that's precisely the point I was about to make. This is the reason why land requirement was lifted under the Marian reforms of the Roman Republic, was because once you get to a certain scale, whether it be the Romans or whether it be the Americans, it's one thing to have a system like that in the 13 colonies where you have a comparatively tiny population. But when you have a multi-ocean spanning continental empire, like with America or Rome, what you have at that point is an institution that is unsustainable without extending that olive branch to other groups of people and granting suffrage to people who you would not have granted earlier. It's simply if you don't even want to argue from a moralistic
can you expand on that? Like, what do you mean
Sure.
by that?
Sure.
Real quick,
So,
Ayden, you're coming up at odds with Montesquieu, who said specifically that if it was expansive, that it would have to be a monarchy. So, like, how are you coming up with a different?
if what was expansive? Pardon me.
Montesquieu's calculation was that democracies are good in places where you have strong geographic borders and small communities.
Right.
But he said that you would need a monarchy or some kind of autocratic rule for anything that gets large enough, say like Russia or bits of Europe. So you just made the conclusion that if it gets big enough, it can't be monarchy. It has to be democracy. So you're coming up 100% at odds with Montesquieu, and I want to know how you're coming to that different conclusion.
So I would say that when you're dealing with the Romans, what I'm talking about, because even in the Roman Republic, you're not looking at it at a place that granted universal suffrage or anything like that, right? When you look at the Roman Republic, you're looking at an expansion of the people who are capable of serving within the state and therefore who are capable of participating within that system. And that's what I'm arguing for, because even during the imperial period of Rome, that citizenship was still extended to people who served in the legions. That suffrage to be able to vote in local elections, and even for representatives, because the People's Assembly within the Republic never went away. You could say it got defanged, and I would agree with you, but the idea of representation never truly died within the Roman state, and you still earned that representation through military service, whether it be the Republic or the Empire. So I would say the same is true for America as well. If America were to expand in the historical path that we saw, it were to go from a relatively small eastern seaboard facing collection of disparate colonies to the largest superpower on Earth, I would say that the scalability of being able to bring about an army of people who are invested in that state and who are invested in the institutions thereof, especially in a post-industrial context where literacy is much higher, where the average standard of education is much higher, I think that is functionally impossible to bring about without some level of democratic representation. And I think that that's been shown based on the fact that the divine right of kings, the driving force that we saw largely bringing government forward throughout the majority of recorded history, at least within the past 2 millennia, has largely fallen away in every single context. It fell away in the Russian context. It fell away in the British context. It fell away in the French context.
Okay, real quick, Ayden. I hate to cut you off, but Phantom is letting me know through Discord that on your channel you are not heard. So either we're going to redirect to a different channel, or you need to.
No, I was muted. My bad. I was muted. Rookie mistake. I
Ayden's channel
on one platform, but didn't have myself muted on another. I just saw now that Big Bad Mama tried calling me a couple times. My bad, guys. Thank you for letting me know.
It's a screen name. It's not a pet name. So you can say that.
Yes. Let's just make that abundantly clear. But I would say that if you wanted to say that monarchy was a good system, pre-printing press, pre-industrialization, in an agrarian society, I think that monarchy is a pretty solid system. But I think when you deal with the scalability that comes with industrialization, when you deal with the mass mobilization of an educated class that comes to the printing press, yes, I can hear you.
We can hear you, yeah.
There are consequences that are associated.
My internet cut out, sorry.
No, that's okay. There are consequences that are associated with that, though. And what we see historically, as a direct result of things like the mass education of a middle class, and through industrialization and the material wealth that provided to people, that the traditional institutions of governance fell away almost without exception. I believe there's only a handful of absolute monarchies left on the planet. I think Saudi Arabia, Thailand. I think there's one or two other. Vatican City is arguably an absolute monarchy. But yeah, any of the significant absolute monarchies that existed throughout history have now since vanished. And I think Montesquieu, while his point of view was very valid for his day and age, I think that if he lived in a more modern context, I think he would have revised a lot of what he said, because his world is certainly very, very different to the one that we live in.
No, he would say, my reasoning was why you still see the monarchies in the Middle East. Because in places like this that don't have strong geographic borders and are vast and difficult to control, that is where and Montesquieu was not like pro-monarchy, but he would have been saying this is where it would be productive and work, and it does. That's what we currently see today.
Okay, so what about Poland? Like Poland is a massively open area, basically no geographic defensibility to it whatsoever, and yet Poland has a very strong history of democratic processes all throughout its history. Basically, as soon as it was granted independence in a post-First World War environment, and even thereafter, it had a very strong history of strong democratic institutions that were brought down by external factors. But those external factors also ended up kind of causing a little thing called the Second World War. So I don't know. I think it's pretty easy to say that Poland kind of got a little bit shafted in that context. Let's put it that way.
Poland, the country who was bullied into being a vassal state of the USSR, that Poland?
They were bullied into being a vassal state of the USSR specifically because there wasn't a willpower in the other side of the Iron Curtain to push back against them at that point. The war weariness was so high that they weren't willing to go about Operation Unthinkable.
Yeah, but again, this is Peter Zion's take, that the USSR was purposefully trying to expand here because of geographic boundary domains.
That's certainly a factor of it, yeah, for sure. They definitely wanted strategic depth in terms of Eastern Europe. That's a big reason why they built up that block of countries. However, that does not mean that when you look at the Polish political context that existed within that time, that you did not see a strong democratic leaning that was only interfered about through external forces.
All right, well, I'm clearly in the center of you two gentlemen. Mo, I'm sorry, but monarchy works maybe for one king, maybe for two kings, but by the time you get the third in the line, it is almost inevitable that you're going to have a bad ruler.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm going to be stable here because my internet's been cutting in and out. So I actually apologize. I missed like a good chunk of the back and forth between you two. But I did hear what you said, Chapingro. And I guess my counter to that would be no, not all monarchies deal in straight heretical lineage. You can look at, and I guess the biggest counter to what you just said would be the Byzantine Empire, which is considered the continuation of the Roman Empire.
Are you really going to do the not all X argument to me?
Well, no, I'm saying that you're saying you made an absolute statement, and I'm saying that we have historical evidence to the contrary.
I would say that every single example of a dynasty within the Byzantine Empire, you look at the Macedonian dynasty, the Komnenin dynasty, the Anglo dynasty, the Angloid dynasty, they all try to establish themselves as long-running dynasties. For example, the Paleologan dynasty lasted all the way from Michael VIII's recapture of Constantinople in 1261 all the way till the conquest of Constantinople in May of 1453, which was the longest-running dynasty in all of Roman history. Was under the
but the point of that is not all the it wasn't a straight lineage situation, right? Like like one of the primary things was really like the military. Military was a large kingmaker in that system. So you had like the military, you had the political elite system, you had the church, and then you had the people who had an indirect role. Obviously, if enough people were unhappy, that could cause issues and cause pressure in order to remove a bad king. And so I would say now, obviously, if we're looking at history and we're looking at things that work or could work better than this ridiculous thing that we have now, I think that you would have to modernize it to some degree, right? You'd have to have some modern. You'd have to have like a. Okay, what do you got?
Our current system is the greatest political system that has ever existed in human history. It meshes together a bunch of the good ideas and weeds out a number of the flaws of bad ideas of old systems.
No, it's based on flawed ideas. It's based on libertarian, man. As long as you're not hurting anybody, man, and everybody gets their vote, man. That's what it's based on.
I do have something to say, though, about the notion of autocratic rulers and the removal of poor autocratic rulers, because I can think of 3 separate examples right off the top of my head where if you do have a really good, effective autocrat in power, it actually does the adverse effect for their successor if they're incompetent. If you have a really good emperor and then it's followed by a really crappy one, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on your channel, so I'm just going to assume that I can't. But if you have a really crappy emperor, you actually find that they're insulated from a lot of their bad decisions because the previous ruler was so good. First example would be Marcus Aurelius and Commodus. Commodus.
Well, that was one of his. Yeah, that was one of his greatest faults. Is he went with his son instead of the guy that he was grooming. That potentially it was his adopted son, which would have probably been a better option. Yeah.
Basil II, Macedon, his successor, Constantine VIII, was probably one of the worst of all of the rulers of the Byzantine Empire. It's hard to be worse than Alexios IV, but Constantine VIII, absolutely terrible ruler, undid a lot of the gains that Basil II brought about at the beginning of the 11th century. He was never removed or overthrown because the Macedonian dynasty at that point was so entrenched after Basil's reign that it was almost unthinkable to have them removed. Also, Constantine VII was an extremely good emperor, and there's a lot of value in a good name. But anyways, the third example, Louis XIV. Amazing ruler, very competent, very effective. But then you get Louis XV, and he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And he never gets overthrown, and he's just allowed to be incompetent.
That's why correctable monarchy is key, not just monarchy, right? Like, not just straight, like...
Well, what's the correction?
No, we don't.
Real quick though. What's the correction mechanism that you envision, Mo, for monarchy?
So so you would have something like monarchy. You'd have different structures. In the government, you'd have the monarchy, an executive leader. The role would be head of state, executive authority. Then you would have something like the High Council. Be governance over economics, military leadership, infrastructure, that sort of thing. You'd have judiciary layer. Then you would have the military. So it would be these different, I guess you could say, councils where they elect and agree on someone to appoint.
So
and you would have a pipeline. You'd have a pipeline of training leaders too, to some degree. I think that would work as well, and that would you would have people rise through the ranks of these systems, and they would be appointed on merit, not on just whoever is the most charismatic person and gets the most votes. I mean,
who gets
to me? So
here's the thing. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say this one thing. I find it silly and ridiculous. Like, if you're in a situation, right, And we do this with damn near everything. Like if you have 1,000 people and they're all standing around a person who's having a heart attack, and you have like a doctor and like 2 medics in the group, who do you want to actually help the guy and like take action and like take charge? Do you want Jim, your uncle, or some random person, like, or do you want the experts? But for some reason, when we go to political level, now it's like, no, everyone has to have a chance. Everyone has to have a vote. It's silly to me. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing I see. Number one, it kind of sounds like you were illustrating some kind of separation of powers, which I think Chapingro was hitting up, or at least hinting at, when it came to the government we have right now, because you're talking about different sections in the government that have different focuses that collaborate and have an emergent self-interest of the nation. And then number two, even the main complaint that I hear now among either monarchists or different other branches of people is that it's really the lobbyists who are doing the thing because they are at the top, of the funding for their interest groups, and then that's what gets heard is the interest groups. So how is a monarchy, even if you have like an upper class, how is a monarchy going to defend against that? It feels like it's closer to a caste system than what we would have now.
Agreed.
Defend against what? Are you saying defend against corruption?
Yeah, defending against
lobbying.
a stratification of the interest of the upper crust versus the interest of the rest of the people.
Yeah, that's the funny part here.
Well,
because
the populace would have the populace in a system. If you use the Byzantine Empire, right? The people did have an influence to some degree.
Was it like a House of Commons kind of influence?
No, I'm saying they were taken into consideration when putting pressure on the upper leaderships.
Well, when you say pressure, is that only after abuse?
Well,
of power,
in medieval times, it would be something, like revolts and things like that. Obviously, that's why I said it had to be modernized to some degree.
Right.
Like, obviously, I mean, so we can all pretend that we're all civilized people, right?
My concern.
I think the vote would be more peace-oriented than we can't take it anymore. That's what I see.
Right.
Well, but this is also in the occasion where somebody does get in who needs to be removed, right?
But
So so if you want to look at it like on a pros and cons, like like a problem, leadership quality, democracy, it's a popularity contest. In modern monarchy, it'd be a trained pipeline, right? You can see decision speed, democracy very slow, monarchy very fast. When you look at long-term planning, democracy very weak. Once again, monarchy strong. When you look at bad leadership removal, it's delayed. If we have a bad leadership now, we vote somebody in there. You know how hard it is to get them out. You know how many it takes a ridiculous amount of effort to actually remove someone who's voted in. So it's delayed. In a modern monarchy, it would be damn near immediate.
I have a question for you.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like term limits are what we're talking about in terms of what we have in America. The term limits are the necessary force to get them out, whereas it could be questionable if people in power.
Yeah, but not all people in power have term limits.
I have a question for Mo.
Especially not in monarchy.
Can I ask?
Well, no, the monarchy would have term limits. It would be something around 30 years.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
We can hear you, Ayden.
Okay. Sorry.
Go ahead, Ayden.
Sorry, I feel like I was butting in a little bit there now.
I haven't talked much, and I'm just very curious because I don't get to talk to monarchists very much. But Mo is one of them.
Mo, I have a question for you. Which would you prefer? If you had to pick one or the other, would you rather a government that quickly enacts policy or effectively enacts policy?
Quickly, that's kind of, it depends. It depends on who's leading the government.
Well, let's say
here's the thing: if you have some crazy Democrat who thinks women can be men and men can be women, and they want to make policies on it, no, I don't think they should be able to do that very fast at all.
Right, but I'm saying all other things being equal, you have two people that are exactly the same in all other regards. They have the exact same political ideology. They have the exact same identity. You had to make a choice between either them enacting their policies quickly, where they get it done within a week. They have this thing proposed, and within a week it's made into law, but it's not really all that like effectual because it's been defanged and there's been a whole bunch of stuff done to it where it's not really all that recognizable to how it originally was? Or would you rather that policy take a bunch of time, take a few months, maybe even a year or two, but when it's implemented, it has everything in it that you want to have implemented in it?
So there's a lot you kind of baked in there. You're saying though that both, I guess they're considered
all
equal.
Of the factors
what do you mean by
like?
So is it a quality leader? Is it someone that I think I trust, or I think is doing a good job, or like what? I mean, there's so many variables here. I don't even know how to answer this.
He's laying out Jefferson's reasoning of why the government was designed specifically to move slow. So the thing you're saying is a flaw, was in fact a design feature that was put in specifically. So Ayden is asking, would you rather have fast and loose, which is what Jefferson was trying to work against, or would you rather have
slow and effective?
Yeah, but that's presupposing the quality of the fast, right? Like if you have someone who has a long-term plan for a government, and it's being followed, and they want to enact something to that everyone that has appointed them agrees is the right course of action, well then you would be presupposing it's a quality and it's going to be effective anyway. So I don't even know how to really answer this.
Well, yeah, so I think Mo is trying to weigh. There's two things with the process. There's the idea that collaboration that takes time is going to weigh all the factors and shave it down to a point that the people want. But then there's also the other side of where the same process can water down what started out to be good. Because by the time it's gone through all the legislators and all the lobbyists, it's been defanged by the process.
That's another factor as well.
That's just a point of view question, right? Mm-hmm. Because the process is the back and forth in which one side is trying to defang it, as you say, and the other side is trying to reinforce it. So, yes,
fair.
We're supposed to have this.
So why should we let?
Let me finish. We
random.
Could have had a king.
Okay, go ahead.
We could have had a king, and there was great discussion about making George the first king of America. But we didn't, because intelligent as they were, our founders understood that a philosopher king would be great if we could get one. But maintaining a line of philosopher kings is nigh on impossible. Whether it's by lineage or otherwise, historically speaking, it's nigh on impossible.
So, but this goes back to their minds at the time and the time period in which this was enacted. It's not the same populace that we have now today, right? It really isn't. So you have to have the idea the founding fathers put in place works when, generally speaking, the people have a moral guideline. We don't have that anymore. Okay, we just don't. Like,
you have laws. Yes, you do.
We're full of degenerate morons walking around, just a bunch of coomers, right? So why should they get any say on government?
What if I told you that one of the big reasons why you see so many people that are disenfranchised and are so degenerate and just look like they're so fed up with the world is precisely because they view a lot of what's happening right now in terms of the corporate takeover of government, in terms of its ineffectual nature as a result.
It's kind of begging the question, though, right? Like you're kind of like baking in. That's.
Okay, let me just say that
if we lived in a moral society, then people at the top would also feel the moral weight of the society in general. But I think
people are not immoral in a vacuum, is what I'm saying.
If we lived in a moral society, we wouldn't need governments, guys.
When I say moral, I'm talking about on a sliding scale, not so much a perfect moral idea. I also, to be a little meta, I don't want it to necessarily be 100% on Mo, because I think we're all kind of curious about the monarchy thing. For sure, there are a lot of things I want to flesh out. I just don't want Mo to feel like this is meant to be a game.
I'm fine with this. This is my comfort zone, man. I'm good.
Great.
Because here's his situation. I'll just be completely honest. I'm still developing this as an argument, and I have some brief notes. So if you guys want to help me refine it, sure, go ahead. But I just think logically standing, I'm on solid ground.
Then I retract what I said. The Mo beatdown continues.
So
No,
As long as my internet
Aiden
holds.
as well, because Aiden is basically pushing toward what reminds me of a Black Mirror episode that everybody just gets out their cell phone and immediately votes on everything. Uber direct democracy, and that is also
No, not that far. I think that direct democracy is important when it comes to selecting major policy changes, and I also think that it would be important in terms of things such as the draft. I think that you should not be able to be drafted unless you voted in favor of that war. I think that's the only logical way to be able to have people drafted that are actually going to be effective soldiers, that aren't going to frag their commanders in the first opportunity, that aren't going to desert, that aren't going to lower the rest of their unit's morale by constantly complaining about the fact that they're there and that it's a bunch of crap why they're there.
Again, I'm going to use a historical reference here in the same way I'm going to push back against Mo to push back against you.
Sure,
We've had drafts throughout all of human history. It doesn't cause immediate collapse. Although we have seen that our model, which is voluntary, is ultimately more productive.
I never said it caused collapse, to be fair.
Well, you're kind of implying that it just it's going to cause this, slow but steady breakdown.
I think it certainly foments disillusionment within people, but I don't think that in of itself can cause a collapse. No. I think that to finish the point that I was making, though. I actually agree with Mo on one key thing, and that's that I think that strength in government is very important. I just think that we invest that strength in different places, whereas Mo would invest that strength into an autocratic monarch. I would invest that strength into institutions that...
A correctable monarchy.
Right. Well, you have a little bit of an emphasis on institutions there, whereas I would kind of take that emphasis on institutions and crank it up quite a bit. I think that there should be strong external forces to, in an example of America, the executive branch of the United States, which has not only over the course of my lifetime, but I think the lifetimes of everybody on this panel, slowly but surely gained more power for itself in the American context as time has gone on. I think that's a bad thing. I think the more oversight is had for the top echelon of government, and the more external forces can exist as checks and balances against that kind of corruption possibly taking place, that overreach that might take place. I think those are the best safeguards against that, rather than a monarch, personally.
So I did hear someone mention, though, I think it was Chapingro, you mentioned the Constitution, the fact that it can be changed is a feature, and it's a good thing. Is that correct?
I think I brought up the Constitution being changed.
Oh, you brought that? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I wasn't sure who mentioned it, but do you both kind of agree that that's a good feature?
It moves slow is the feature I was
Move slow,
saying.
okay.
The thing you were saying was a negative, a bad thing. I'm saying...
Yeah, I think the way the Constitution in the modern sense is flawed. And I can explain why, right? So some would say that the Constitution being able to be changed is a good thing. But if you think about it, in a long enough timeline, there's nothing stopping certain group of people from coming in and slowly getting a voting block and going all the way up to the government. And if they get 2/3, they can change the Constitution to be whatever the hell they want. And then they can literally change it to the point where it's not even recognizable anymore.
How is that any less true for a monarchy? If anything, it would be much easier for a monarchy to institute that, because there are far fewer people that are needed in order to necessitate that.
Well, the reason is the reason is the pipeline. The pipeline comes from the people spreading, getting a voting block, then they go from the state level, then they go to the government level. Like, you don't have that pipeline with a monarchy.
But the pipeline that you do have with a monarchy is the one that you were describing earlier. The system where they're trained, the system where they are given all of these tools in order to be an effective ruler. The amount of people that you would have to subvert, the amount of people that you would have to corrupt, that is a far
Why-
smaller number than the number that you gave in your example.
Well, that's why part of the monarchy has to be some sort of moral guidance. So that would be the church.
But that's not a monarchy. A monarchy is one person that has the absolute sovereign. You can't have checks and balances against a monarchy. That's no longer
Byzantine
a monarchy.
had checks and balances. Byzantine had checks and
No,
balances.
the Byzantine Empire was an absolute monarchy.
It was
No, they had checks and balances.
They were literally
The way it was
called the
structured.
autocrator.
No, hang on. I will agree with Mo.
They had political
There are
elite
natural-
bureaucracy. They had the
There are
church
natural
who
checks
had
and
it.
balances.
Who appointed
The
the
church
ecumenical patriarch?
and hold on. They had the political elites. They had the church. They had the military. They all pretty much had to agree on this person's going to be the ruler.
No,
Especially the
because
church.
They appointed the patriarch. The emperor appointed the patriarch. The emperor appointed the strategos of the military and chose who was going to be the strategoi of Asia and the strategoi of Greece and etc. They were the one that was in control. They appointed all of those people.
The military structure you had in that time, you had leaders rise through the ranks when they did well in combat.
Yeah,
and did well at
unless
leading.
they got killed. Like Stilicho,
Sure, but
when he got
well,
killed
that's
because he
that's
was
a what?
effective.
Sure, that's a what if. But I'm talking about the system. I'm not
It's
talking
not, it's
about
not a
like
what if that happened
one-off.
in the real world. That's not
That's-
one
I know,
off.
but
That's the norm.
hold on. I'm not saying. I'm talking strictly about the system and how it was designed, not all the
Right.
different outcomes that happened in one way or another. I'm saying that they did have a system where you had power structures that was divided, and they pretty much kind of had to agree. Okay, yeah, this guy is a ruler.
Well, if you're saying that they had to give some level of authority to other people, of course, any society that's larger than a hunter-gatherer encampment is going to require some level of delegation being given to other people. The question is whether or not the person giving that authority to other people, A, exclusively has the authority to give that out, and B, exclusively has the authority to take that away. And both was the case for the autocrator of the
Well, yeah,
Roman.
at that time, if you had a ruler and the military power decided like, okay, this guy is just horrific and not doing great, they could remove him.
Right, they could, but there was also loads of examples of people throughout the history of the Roman Empire, like Maurice, for example, who was actually a sitting emperor. He was
Yeah,
extremely-
I was just using Byzantine as example, right?
No, that's fair.
I get your points about the Roman. I mean, but to be fair, the Byzantine is considered the continuation of the Roman Empire to some degree. So
right.
Which
And
one should we look toward? That's kind of
That's a good
what
question.
I want to ask. Like,
That's a good question.
If we're gonna go back, then you need to tell me which one was doing it correctly.
which one? What?
Which monarchy
state?
system was doing it correctly? Because otherwise, what I'm hearing from you is like, oh, I can fix her. I know she's she's an OnlyFans girl, but I can make her into a good girl. Monarchy's really
She
not
can
that
change.
bad, guys. We can make it work.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
All right. So tell me
I
when it did work.
would point to the point to the
tell me when it
Byzantine
worked.
Empire as a whole that lasted over 1,000 years. So, in comparison to the U.S. government, the U.S. is just on trial run. We're on the free trial right now, and
Yeah,
it's about
but,
to run
like,
out.
imagine
Okay.
if America, for like the majority of its history, imagine if for the majority of America's history, there was a civilization, I don't know, let's say Canada, for this example. Canada
Okay.
gets a leader that overruns half of the country and just kind of takes it over, and then it never gets taken back. That's what happened to the Romans. So I don't know, dude. They were a long-lasting
Okay.
institution, I'll give you that, but they went through a lot of crap, and they
Yes, yeah, but no, that actually goes to my point. They went through a lot of crap and they survived.
But we don't get this notion of being able to push back against the supreme ruler until kind of Hobbes.
Yeah.
era, and not even Hobbes. Locke was the first one that was really pushing this idea, because even Hobbes said that the Leviathan is the supreme. And
Okay,
what I really
well-
wanted to push at earlier, and where I think both of you, where I disagree with both of you, is that we already have a Leviathan. in the American system, the Leviathan is the people. We, the people, are the Leviathan.
Right,
So if
I
you're
agree with you.
upset with the way that our system is currently working, then really where you should be pointing the finger is back at ourselves.
That goes to my point. The people are immoral and degenerate and everything's like fucked. And why should we let these people have any say on governance? You're making my point.
Because the odds that we get a person who is good and moral and durably so, as history has shown us over and over again, is so impractically low, so as to entertain it is
Yeah,
I'm
so
trying to come up
more
with a nice
impractical than voting someone in and hoping he actually like corrects the ship, and then okay guys, maybe he does a few policies and he corrects a little bit. Oh, but it's only fair in 4 years. We got to give it up again so these wackos can steer the ship towards the iceberg. It's only fair, guys.
Well, here's the thing.
How does that make any sense?
Here's how-
American
Do
executive
you think
power.
Jefferson wasn't bringing this up? Do you think Franklin wasn't having this discussion?
That's what
as
the
he was
Feller's
talking
paper
or-
was all about, wasn't it?
Yeah, this discussion
Yeah.
was already had. Yes, we had this discussion. We know that this is a risk. We know that this is a symptom of the choice that we've taken, but it is the consistent choice in that otherwise you're completely dependent on a third party to do it. Not-
Well, so this
that's
is-
the thing,
I
and that's
think
the
this
thing about
is-
the Constitution is the entire point of what they had the checks and balances was to engineer the absolute fact of self-interest in power to work against itself so as to slow down and retard the actual corruption that could otherwise happen and make
dare
it
you.
and make it impossible. We're demonetized.
not-
It's okay.
and not-
I don't even
not
have 100
good.
subs. Who cares?
Will otherwise
Canceled. Canceled.
Our government has been retarded by the Constitution. Anyway, the point is, the whole point of the checks and balances, like I said, was the acknowledgement of corruption in government and using it against itself. That's the genius of the Constitution. And the voting part of it has to do with the people at large making their self-interest known in the government. I think the voting is what gives the people the unexpressed yet very real fourth branch of government.
Hey, Confluence Ray, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Settle in, enjoy. Like and subscribe, please. We're talking about government.
Get Mo to 100
theory
plus
here.
subscribers.
Get him up there,
That's
guys.
right.
Hit that
You
like
guys
button.
are gonna
Smash
join
it.
the. You guys are gonna join the
What's
100
up, section?
club quickly. Don't you worry.
Confluence HR, I can see you.
The
Abby,
monarchy has begun.
Maryland.
No, I love. Trust
Yeah.
me. There was a period of time where I was also a monarchist as well. Like during my teens, especially when I was super
Well,
deep into
hold
my
on.
study of
Can I
Roman.
just say something real quick? You guys were just appealing to the founding fathers, right? But if you're going to appeal to the founding fathers, once again, they didn't believe everyone should vote. So you can't have it both ways. So which one is it? Is it
No,
were
you
they
can appeal
really
to
good and
aspects of
ingenious, or okay, so you can pick and choose?
Yeah, that seems like a bit of a false dichotomy,
this-
right?
it is
Obviously,
a
there's
false dichotomy.
nuance involved when
Because
you
we
deal with
haven't
people.
brought up natural law. That's the key differentiator here. We're going back to Thomas Aquinas.
Hmm.
There is
Right.
Yeah,
a setting
so-
of structures and systems which we discover in some sense. Yes, we incorporate them. We are the ones who write out the Constitution. But through the experimentation of our different modes of governance, we discover what works best. So our founding fathers weren't quite at the point where we said slavery was bad yet. And now we pretty much all agree that, even economically speaking, slavery's a poor mode of operation. So we can cowl to the founding fathers because even they would have said, we don't have all of the answers. We don't know exactly everything that is natural law, which is why we're leaving this room to maneuver for future generations.
Right, but okay, so maybe this is the difference here, right? Fundamentally, when I look at governance, I like to look at it in long terms. So when I look at long terms, we can look at things like Dearborn, Michigan, right? With a growing Muslim population who, whatever you want to say, they would, if they could press a button, enact Sharia law tomorrow, right? And so if these people, if let's just take that as an example, if they grow to the state level and then they grow to the government level, there's nothing, it might not happen in your lifetime, my lifetime, our kids' lifetimes, But eventually, if they get enough of a majority, they can vote and change the Constitution to be whatever the hell they want.
But
How
then
is
the
this
point of the
not
You
a
said it
long-term
yourself. That
flaw?
would be a different group of people.
No,
So,
but
of
also
course
the
we shouldn't
Constitution.
judge for them.
The Constitution itself would basically have to be entirely thrown out at that point.
Well,
because
no,
if
we
you amend the
should
Constitution, then
have the
America
idea
has to be a
of, like, you know,
secular
they'll say,
society.
you know, plant a tree you'll never see the shade of. We should have the idea for the future of America if we want America to continue. And I want America to continue.
Mo is correct. I do want to give credit where credit is due. Goodell wrote a letter to Einstein pointing out a potential flaw in our Constitution that allows for exactly what Mo is talking about. That
That's true.
slowly but surely it could be changed over time to become something that
But my argument against that is that his system of governance is not immune from that, and if anything, is even more susceptible to it due to the fact that it requires less people to enact those sorts of things.
and that's where I agree with you, Ayden.
Well, here's
now,
the
well,
thing,
hold on,
though.
hold on, really
The
quick.
structure.
Let me
Okay, go
finish,
ahead. Go ahead.
I think that you guys would agree that America, not only as a institution, as a nation, but as a society, is fundamentally unrecognizable now compared to what it was in the late 18th century, right?
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I think the same is true for the Romans when you look at them in, say, the 1st century versus the 5th or the 10th or the 12th. And what that outlies is the fact that no matter what group of people you are, whether you're led by an autocrat or whether you're led by a republic, there's going to be massive sweeping changes on a societal level that take place. And I think it is better for that society that those changes are represented through the will of the people rather than represented through the will of a very potentially flawed monarch. And while I agree with you that there are individuals within our society that are dumb, that are stupid, that don't know what the hell, that don't know what the heck they're doing.
So,
I
question
think
on that.
Really quick. I'm almost done.
Okay, go ahead.
I think the average high school student, and you may think you may disagree, but I think the average high school student knows more about the world and knows more about stuff around them than the average person did 100 years ago, or 200 years ago, or 300 years ago.
So on that point with Rome,
person.
right?
I mean,
you said Rome.
I think of the
you Rome.
1890
Wait.
Rule
Real quick. You said the Rome. You were talking about Rome falling or whatnot. When you say that one of the key things that a lot of historians point to is a shift from civic duty towards personal interest was contributed to Rome's fall. Would you agree with that?
I think that there was always a interest in oneself that existed within Rome. Like, look at, for example, I'm trying to think of his name, Marcus Licinius Crassus, right? He ended up literally orchestrating an invasion of the Parthian Empire, literally out of his own ego. He literally just did it because, look at Pompey the Great, look at Julius Caesar. They're having all these military successes, so I'm going to go have my own military successes too.
It went from duty to the state, shared identity, sacrifice. They went to pursuit of political power. I think it was very like the individual, and that's what we see in current America. We see the focus on the individual, my individual rights, man. I'm not harming anyone, man.
But Mo, that's what we saw when that's exactly the point I was trying to make. Is that when people think about Romans individually worrying about their own concerns, they think about somebody in like the 400s AD sitting in their villa eating grapes as the countryside behind them burns, and they just apathetically don't care about it. But the example I gave you was arguably contemporary to Rome's height as a power. So I would actually argue that the rise of egomaniacs, the rise of megalomaniacs that only care for themselves and are willing to sacrifice scores of people for their own benefit.
Well, that's still the individual. That's still them focusing on themselves.
Right,
I don't
and
see
that's
how
what I'm saying. Sulla
was an example of somebody who only cared for himself. Caesar was somebody who only cared for himself. Augustus was somebody who only cared for himself. If you look at Octavian and his life and everything that he did, he killed scores and scores of people for his own personal benefit. So I would actually argue that you begin seeing a rise in that selfishness, of that self-centeredness in the imperial period. What you see in the Republic is people like Cincinnatus, who willfully give up his dictatorial power because he's not interested in his own personal gain. He's interested in the gain of the state and the institutions that run that state.
I want to jump in halfway.
Yeah, but that would go towards, like, I guess, my point of a moral society.
But it was the Republic
has a direct. Sure, but we even talked about the Federalist Papers, where they said that this only works if the populace is immoral.
Here,
so
let's let Chapingro
once again
jump in once you finish, Mo, with your finished point.
Yeah, go ahead. I just want to comment on that. Go ahead, Chapingro.
No, you guys are having a wonderful conversation. I enjoy this.
Chapingro, I came in and played Usher for you.
I appreciate you. I appreciate it.
Have
it's like, I don't need your help.
Oh no, I would not have a seat at the theater.
Did I ask for you?
Chapingro, that was not a request. Say something.
Yes, tell us a joke.
I have a thought. What is your thought, Chapingro? Oh, I better not.
No,
now you
never
guys are
mind.
picking on me so much, I'm forgetting what it was I was trying to say. I think part of what Ayden is pointing toward, and I agree with Mo a little bit, it's widely documented, and we can say that this is like historical, they weren't as critical in writing their histories at the time, and it was more about feels than it was about accuracy. But so widely documented that the moral standards of the state of Rome were part of the breakdown. I think we should probably give that charity. That said, I would say that in Ayden's position, it's more likely that the nobility of working for the state and being a member of the polis and all that was something that the commoners got told, and the children of the senators were told that it was basically divine rule, and they were there because they're great and grand and their lineage.
I mean, I'd make the argument that the idea that Rome fell due to some moral decline is primarily one of the first people you see championing that argument outside of the Roman context is people like Edward Gibbon in his book book series, I should say, Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. But I think Edward Gibbon also makes a giant point that I think Mo would disagree with quite fundamentally, which is that one of the big things he assigns to the downfall of the Roman Empire is the rise of Christianity in the Roman Empire.
Yep.
He directly equates those two things with each other. So okay. I think that a lot of people that think that the Roman Empire fell due to some moral deficiency kind of cherry pick those arguments and leave off a lot of the arguments that they don't find congruent with their worldview.
That's interesting. Could you expound on that?
I have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would like to hear him expand on it as well, but I'm just going to say that I haven't read this guy's writings. I think my point was simply just, I guess, a historical one that seems to contribute to the downfall of it. I don't even know if I would even agree with this guy's first or second, third opinion. I don't know. But,
well, maybe we can find some common ground here, Mo. Do you agree that a lot of what we have in the modern world, the scientific revolution, our modes of thought, our systems of laws, that most of this is in fact downstream of Christian norms and ethics becoming prominent in the European continent?
I would say that Christian ethics is been proven historically to be the best ethics to shape government structure around. Yes.
That wasn't quite my question. My question is, do you agree that what we have today that we all kind of take for granted is in fact downstream of Christian thought?
I would say largely, yeah. I would say, yeah.
Okay, so when
we because even you can look at, well, I'll say that. Never mind. Go ahead.
When we get to Hobbes, and what Hobbes is pointing out is a very Christian-centered ethic in that what he's saying is we do have rights. That this notion that it is all, because previous to Hobbes, it was basically divine right. If you were
Correct.
the king, you were the king because God put you on the throne, and again, that's why rebelling was an illegal chess move. You can't rebel against the person God put on the throne. That's
Well, no, like in the Byzantine Empire, oftentimes it was like the military structure that would declare emperors along with like the church.
Right,
I
but
don't know.
that was something that was retroactively justified by those rulers. If those revolts got put down, the narrative would be, well, those people were emboldened by Satan, or those people were ne'er-do-wells who were trying to tear the empire apart. So the narrative of whether it was legitimate or not entirely depends on whether or not they actually got into power. I would
Well,
say,
yeah, and the founding fathers would have been hanged for treason if they didn't win. So what's your point?
my point is that
but that's where Hobbes comes in. We get this in Hobbes. What Hobbes is saying is there are certain things that no ruler can take away from you, and these are like the buddings of what we commonly parlance now as natural law. But for Hobbes, he starts out by saying no ruler can make you like kill yourself, can make you speak ill of yourself, which is where we get, I think it's the Fifth Amendment. Is it the Fifth Amendment that you don't have to talk bad against yourself?
You don't have to. Yeah, you can plead the Fifth. Yeah,
Yes.
the Fifth. Yeah, self-incrimination. Yeah.
So previous to this, everything is coming through the king, and now Hobbes is saying, hang on, no, there's some cutout that is given to us by God, and this cutout is that we have the self-autonomy to not have to self-sacrifice just because someone said. And then Locke expands on this a little bit later, but all of these ideas are coming from a Christian ethic. So when he's talking about the fall of Rome, part of that, the diminishment of the power of like the emperor, is this notion that there is no one true power here on earth that is not God. So we do not put our faith in a man in that way.
Right. And let me jump in right in there. So let's go to Deuteronomy 17, because that directly relates to kings. Now, again, Old Testament civil law is not prescriptive to the nth degree in New Testament, because New Testament prescribes no form of government, but it's worth reading. And I'm just going to start after Deuteronomy 17. I'm going to start verse 16, because it goes into the limitations on a king, and obviously, if the king is the ultimate civil power, the limitations coming from God are the moral law that supersedes the civil law, or at least gives shape to the civil law. So he says, verse 16 of Deuteronomy 17, "But he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt to the end that he should multiply horses. For as much as the Lord hath said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way. Neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away, and neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. And it shall be, when he sitteth upon the throne of this kingdom, that he shall write him a copy of this law in a book, that of which is before the priests and the Levites. And it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, to keep all the words of this law and these statutes, to do them, that his heart may not be lifted up above his brethren, and that he turn not aside from the commandment to the right hand or to the left, to the end that he may prolong his days in the kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel." So there's a ceiling to that law, and if anything, it's supposed to humble him and say, just because you have a position doesn't mean you're better. And so that would preclude just the right of being in a position of force.
Yeah, you're still a man. Deal with it.
Well, there was, it wasn't until, and since we're talking about Hobbes, it's important to remember that Hobbes didn't come out of a vacuum. He was a direct product of the English Civil War that took place to overthrow Charles I, who was exercising tyrannical authority over his subjects. But prior to the trial of Charles I, it was anathema to even suggest the idea that monarchs could commit crimes.
Yeah.
Monarchs, how could a monarch commit a crime? A monarch is the penultimate representation of his people.
They're the ultimate authority. Yeah.
Right. And that was thought of as an expression of the divine right of kings, which was alluded to before. The idea that, well, Charles I gets to do whatever he wants because God lets him do whatever he wants. And Hobbes, amongst others, came to the conclusion, as well as this little guy called Oliver Cromwell, came to the conclusion that that wasn't true, that that was a bunch of hokum, and after he was overthrown, he was subsequently executed, proving, in my opinion, that the idea of the divine right of kings is not as cut and dry as it's made out to be. So I would have a question for Mo with that in mind. Do you believe in a monarchist system that a monarch should have the potential of being held to account for his crimes? Do you think a monarch should be able to be put up on trial for crimes against the state?
Yeah, that goes in line with a correctable monarchy, as I've said from the beginning. Like, I think so. We can point to the Byzantine Empire as what works for a long period of time, but obviously we would have to modernize some of it for it to work, right, to some degree, if we're going to attempt this thing. And there would have to be check and balances in councils and such, where if something does go awry, let's say you have a guy come through the pipeline and he gets in there and he just turns into a fucking dictator, well then, yeah, you need a system to deal with that guy. And under a monarchy, it would happen a lot quicker than everyone getting together and voting on it, and then, you know, all this other stuff. It would happen a lot quicker.
We have a system for that under monarchies. It's called a war.
Well, that is, yeah. Well, also, I mean, look, at the end of the day, right? Like, let's say this little experiment with the U.S., it gets so degraded and so degenerate to the point where it starts to turn where enough people are sick of it. I mean, how else? And their voices they're not having representation, right? What are their options?
But they do have
I mean,
representation. That's the very frustrating part here.
Do we? Do we have representation?
Absolutely.
We do.
Okay. Let's put it this way: how many of the elite classes love Donald Trump? That would are in the pockets of Donald Trump. Is it the Democrat Party? Is it the media? Is it the academics? Is it the science community? Like it seems like there's a lot.
That's a whole nother. Yeah, that's a whole nother issue. The whole two-party system is.
What I'm saying is the guy
issue.
who got pew-pewed a couple times, or at least they tried to, and went to jail,
right,
and lost. I'm gonna put that in with an asterisk, the 2020 election and all kinds of stuff. There was still enough. There was still enough power in society to say no. We want to try him again, especially over Kamala.
Over 60 court cases, he did lose 2020. Just saying.
Right, but imagine if the powers that
how many of those were actually admitted in court?
Yeah, imagine though the powers that be who were doing the pew pew was large enough. You know what?
Yes, I can imagine an alternative scenario. But what I'm saying is that's a pretty strong set of evidence to say that the people's vote still has power, because the people otherwise. Outside of that, the largest amount, if you collected all the powerful institutions that liked Trump and all the powerful institutions that didn't like Trump, you could put all the lobbyists together. If the lobbyist had the final say, Trump would never have won in the first place, and you definitely wouldn't have won the second time.
Okay, so do you, let's say someone votes for Trump. I'm going to assume for the sake of argument that you vote for Trump. Yeah. Do you feel represented by all of his decisions?
No, but it's a point of comparison rather than a point of perfection.
This is a Burkean thing, and I almost got upset with Ayden earlier because it sounded like he wanted pure virtual representation where the person I vote for votes exactly for what I would want. And Burke spoke directly about this. He says, "Hey, look, guys. One, there's never going to be a perfect politician that is going to give you exactly what you want because you're one voter. Right. So, tough shit." I'm sorry. Are we not supposed to curse? My bad, Rex.
This is, it's YouTube. I didn't come in thinking everybody was going to be in kindergarten, and then again, I guess kindergartners these days are even worse than us. So, the point I see is I can see where you're coming from, Mo, when it comes to like if we have immediacy, we have efficiency, and immediacy and efficiency, as long as we have the pipeline that passes down the traditions, ensuring the competence of the leaders, that's a system that not only has efficiency due to the passing down of experience, but also the immediacy of unquestioned power for the most part. But how would you differentiate that from, like, say, Xi Jinping in China that can implement eminent domain as fast as he wants to build a highway over what used to be like a neighborhood or tons of neighborhoods at once?
Because you would have, because once again, it would be a correctable monarchy. It'd have to be, and there was versions of correction in the Byzantine Empire. So now, obviously, that was. A lot of times it was the power structures that sure, it's institutional, but it's still a corrected
I'm
measure.
saying it wasn't institutional. It was external. It required revolts to actually make
no, because the elites, the church, the military, they could decide this guy's no good, and obviously people those people had a sense of duty to the state and the longevity of the state. We don't have that.
Here's my concern. With the state of technology we have right now and the kind of warfare people can do, we talk about immediacy, we talk about how fast things can happen. Let's say we have a revolt inside a nation and how weak a nation would be under a civil war or some kind of revolt. If you had some unified enemy power to come in and divvy up the spoils, we'd be more at risk now with that if we had to rest our laurels on maybe the people will revolt if it gets bad enough, as opposed to maybe we'll just have another election.
Well, once again, I would just flip the same thing back to you. If things get degraded enough and you have the people rise up anyway, you're going to have the same situation.
So I'm saying that psychologically, at least, let's even say the vote is fake. Let's just say that the vote is just a sham. At least psychologically, the people feel they have a voice, which gives them a placebo to keep more peaceable. They even have that in North Korea, where the vote is a joke. They even have that in Russia, where the vote is a joke, but it still has a place because they recognize that not only internationally does it give you an air of credibility that we're a democracy or whatever because we do the vote, but it also gives the people something they feel they admire, which is mostly done in the West.
Okay, so let me just pose this to you then. In our current system, when you have all these NGOs and everything else, and you vote, everyone votes for the guy who's charismatic and they think he's going to do and do all the things and enact all the things that he promised and make all their dreams come true and all this shit. And then he gets in there and then the NGOs are like basically paying him to do what they want. Is that really representation? Like, how is that any different?
I just don't see that as any different than the aristocracy and the church, which could also be corrupted. I see it as like tomato, except you have a vote in one system.
Well,
and you don't have a vote in
we
the other.
would, that depends on what you mean by the church.
I don't like your framing that this is some kind of like that it's all a show so that the common.
No, I'm saying for sake of argument. I'm saying for sake of argument. Let's just say it is. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying
I don't even want to entertain it for the sake of argument, because what that leads to is exactly this conclusion where, well, it's really not representation. My vote is 1 in 340, and not that many in the voting populace. So let's say like 250 million voters, right? What does that really do? The understanding that needs to occur, and this is what should have happened in our 8th, 9th grade civics classes, is the understanding that we have a say, but our say is distributed amongst the populace. Mm-hmm. So at the end
you have to collectivize. You have to collectivize with the people who have your view.
But it always will be. Even what you're describing requires that kind of collectivization. If you're going to have any pushback in your monarchy, it's going to have to be a group of people getting together and saying, you know what, we're willing to put our political force together to get something done.
Yeah, so even if I can even grant that, right? So we're both on equal grounds. At least on my system, we have a direction that we're going in, and we don't turn it over to the wackos every 4 years to like turn the ship to the iceberg.
So
there's more pros in my system than in yours, all things being equal.
If we do it right, then we can get rid of currency and money, and we won't have any states and any borders.
And then we just hang around all day, bro, and just do whatever, man. Just
I can hug a squirrel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No,
No,
I didn't
I'm really
say-
surprised
Well, no.
here because I feel like I'm having a conversation with somebody who's telling me they just never tried communism.
They
just
never tried
did
the
it
real
right, bro.
version. They never
Yeah.
tried the real version.
Are you talking to me?
Well,
or
what do you
talking
mean
to
by
Mo?
that?
You're saying that, like, well, we just need to tweak a few things here and there. This is really just an engineering problem, and we can make monarchy work. And when we do make it work, it will have all of these
Well, no,
benefits
wait.
that your silly
I'm not
system doesn't have.
I'm not saying that's not the main premise of my argument. Main premise of my argument is we have historical accounts where it does work, and you have check and balances that can work. But my point is only that so we can all pretend we're civilized. Yeah, you would probably have to modernize to some degree.
So
That's my only point.
Pretending we're civilized is yes, it is a game. It is all a joke. That is true, but that is the state of nature. This is where Rousseau is actually worth listening to when he is worth listening to.
I thought it was Hobbes.
Well, Hobbes started with the state of nature, but remember, Hobbes' state of nature is, a miserable short existence where everybody is constantly at war with everybody
Right,
else.
nasty, brutal, and short. No, yeah.
And Rousseau is saying, no, everybody's born into chains because we're all playing this faux game of polite society and power, and it's not real. And
Yeah, Rousseau, if I'm correct, I might be wrong about this, but didn't he idealize the Spartans as a civilization? Didn't he say that they were like some of the pinnacle of... But when you look at Spartans as a civilization, they faded into obscurity because they were so unwilling to change any of their institutions. They just kept things exactly how they always were, to the point where they just became a backwater that nobody cared about.
Are you saying they're uber conservatives?
They were. No, they were. The Spartan state was probably the most conservative state in human history. I don't think that's
And then Athens was the other direction, right?
Arguably, for the standard of the day, to an extent. But what I would say is the example that I've heard brought up is the Byzantine Empire, and I freaking love talking about the Byzantine Empire. It's a fascinating topic to me. But we need to remember that when we look at a state like the Byzantine Empire throughout human history, it's really easy to kind of look at it from a broader perspective where we're looking at the country as a whole. But think about what it would have been like to be an individual inside of that empire when between, what was it? It was like between like the year 1000 and 1400. There was over 70...
Can you not envision the glory of our magnificent system of honor and duty?
Honor and good vibes, dude. Good vibes and...
honor and duty has something to do with good vibes.
No, but anyways, there was over 70 civil wars between 1000 and 1400. That's about, on average, a civil war every 14 years. 14 and a quarter years. I like having a place that's not on fire. I imagine you like also having a place that's not on fire, that doesn't have an army marching through it and looting everything of value. But that was just the reality.
Right, but our current system is self-degrading.
Mo,
right?
Are you an accelerationist?
Self-degrading?
Yeah,
Sorry.
its current system is self-degrading. Like this whole like...
When you say that, though, when you look at the history of how many civil conflicts occurred in the Roman Republic versus how many civil conflicts literally right after the imperial system began, within a generation you had the Year of Four Emperors, or Otho, Vespasian, who are the other two? Anyways, all of them are fighting it out, and it results in untold death and destruction. And then you have the 3rd century crisis. Like, there's way more internalized violence that occurs under an autocratic system than a republican system. And I don't think that's
such
coincidental.
a negative Nancy.
I know, I'm sorry.
It's just because they didn't do it right yet.
We should just have an emperor
right
because emperor looked cool.
Okay,
No,
so, well, you're talking about the Rome, you keep flipping between Byzantine and Rome, but once again, I know, but when you say Rome, are you including Byzantine in that?
Yeah, they're the same state in my opinion. It's a continuation.
Okay. Well, yeah, I would say it's accurately continuing, but there are like differences. But my point still stands that it lasted over 1,000 years.
It did.
Right,
It lasted
so-
over 1,000 years, but when you would hate to be a peasant or a merchant even.
Well, yeah, but
inside of
here's
that
the
state.
situation. Okay, but hold on. This is completely crazy because guess what? Every place at that time was kind of dealing with the same shit. Like there was wars and shit constantly at that time. So, like what
Not on that level.
when you look at the time period, when you
Not
look
on
at the
that level.
time period, my point is the structure in that of the government in that time period, you did have that pretty much across the board.
I disagree
More
with
frequently, yes, but that like there is a sliding scale here, and what Ayden is pointing to is specific to the direction that you're pointing toward. On that sliding scale, you get more of this under that autocratic.
Yeah, you
style
get more
regime.
violence under an autocratic system. It's just factually accurate.
Yes.
Oh,
There's
okay.
less social elasticity.
So well then.
It's more rigid.
So what would you call the summer of love and burning cities to the ground? What was that? Was that
We're
just
burning
perky?
cities to the ground and the
That was
sun
that
alone?
was
Yeah, was that just
pre-monarchy.
great?
It was
Wait.
pre-monarchy.
Was that?
See,
No,
they,
well,
they
he's
knew
talking.
that
He's talking
they-
about Chaz Chop in
if
Seattle.
they
I think.
yeah, Chaz Chop.
Yes,
If they
yeah.
disrupted the systems enough, they could put in their own monarch in place, who would be the philosopher king that everybody.
No, but
has
my
been
my
wishing and desiring
no,
for.
no, 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 no.
And
That's
it's gonna
not
be
my
magic
point.
and perfect.
My point is you're talking about, well, they had disruptions in the Byzantine Empire and there was conflict, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, well, you know, Black Lives Matter going on a grand tour, burning cities to the ground.
Yeah, you know the
That's
difference?
completely
The difference is
completely
they didn't-
fine.
They didn't track death counts back then because it was just so ubiquitous. Now, what was the death count in all of BLM?
Well, it depends on who you ask. You know, if you look at the DAs that aren't prosecuting
Roll me
these
your
people and just letting them
wildest
go, I'm not
Was it
gonna
over
play the numbers
1,000?
game with you. I'm not gonna play. No. But here's the point. You're going to death. I'm going to civil unrest. I'm saying that it was still violent. That's my point.
Yes, and there was lots of civil unrest in the ancient world.
I would
Sure,
argue there was
yeah,
far
so-
more civil unrest in the ancient world because how many civil
Yes.
wars has America gone through? They've gone through one, and it was awful, and it was terrible, and it sucked. Don't get me wrong, but last I checked, one is a lot lower of a number than 70, and America has existed for over 200 years at this point. So it's not like it's just a fluke because it's such a young country. Don't get me wrong; it's relatively quite young, but that doesn't detract from the fact that the American experiment has led to markedly less violence than its monarchical contemporaries. That's just factually accurate.
Ayden, can you? do a
Well, yeah, but
comparison
no,
for
but
us
you
with
can
your
say
knowledge?
you can say that in modern society, Western society in general, that holds true for every place.
No,
pretty
no,
much.
because I was talking about
Less
how,
death than the ancient world. So I think it's a
No.
kind of a moot
I'm
point.
even talking about like America. If you want to go back to say a century ago, where the vast majority, well, a bit more than a century ago, pre-World War I, where the vast majority of European societies are governed by absolute monarchies, right? Not only do you find that the standard of living in America is a lot higher than in those European countries, but the education is a lot better. The literacy rate is a lot higher. There's a lot more success to be had in a country where you have a lot more of a chance to meritocratically rise above your current station that you have in life. Whereas in an absolute monarchical system, the latitude that you have to be able to climb socially is much less. So naturally, you are going to have more people that are less motivated to pursue their full
Yeah, it's
potential,
almost
because
like
what's the
you
point?
reward competence, and you get people who actually deserve to be in the position that they need
Yeah, but
to
how
be
can
in.
you know how can you truly know the full extent of someone's potential if you deny them basic rights such as suffrage? How can you
So
ever
then
know
this
the
is
fullness
so
of
this is the
someone's
problem. This is the
potential?
flaw. We should give everyone this equal opportunity, and everyone has a chance to vote, and everyone
Yeah.
like this is ridiculous. Like
How's that ridiculous?
I'm never going to be a professional basketball player. Okay, that's just a reality. I should not be given the shot. So this idea
saying
that
it's
everyone should
impossible.
have a shot at this, yes, it's impossible. I'm not tall
No.
enough.
No, I'm sorry, that's not
that's
true.
also your
Hang on.
determination based on your self-knowledge, but that's not been imposed upon you
No,
from the top
I'm
down.
living in I'm living on reality. Certain people have
It's
no
not
business in
impossible
governance.
for you to become a professional basketball player. That's not true.
Yes, it is.
Well, let's
Yes,
look at
it
let's
might
look
as well
at-
be.
let's
half
look at
agree with Mo.
let's look at who did become professional basketball players when they had more space in society. I mean, if you want to talk about basketball, you want to talk about social effects. When you
I mean, you said an example. That's.
Let's talk about basketball for the next 45
I'm
minutes.
saying
guys.
I don't want to talk about Larry Bird. Okay, I'm just saying that in
We're
we're not talking
general,
about Larry Bird.
Please, let's
in
talk about
reality,
basketball. Let's talk
no,
about basketball.
in
All the
reality,
people that want to play basketball, what percentage
Right.
of the population actually gets to play in the NBA?
very low.
Yeah,
I don't know the percentage.
Okay, at the founding,
Yeah,
do you know what percentage of people got the right to vote?
very low.
It is low. I'm trying to get you to take a guess since this is your position.
I would be
How
shocked if it
low
was in
is
the
very
double
low?
digits.
I mean, you're asking for a percentage based on the population at the time. I don't have that number. No, I don't off the top of my head. No,
Okay, it was
I don't know.
6%.
Like that seems like, okay.
Are you comfortable with 6% of the population?
Yes, because those people had skin in the game. They at least had something that they were bringing. Oh, I'm invested in this. Not I'm an OnlyFans girl, and I just want to live my life, man. And you know, I'm on my journey, man. And oh, by the way, I think Kamala's awesome, man.
Like, I don't get that. How could you
the
say that?
94% who wanted a place to live also had skin in the game.
Right.
Skin in the game is kind of a very loose term. You're gonna want to narrowly tailor your criteria in such a way that is understandable.
Well,
Investment in the security of the state and the investment in the continuation of the country.
Yeah,
Better-
you want to gatekeep participation and democracy behind capital. I understand that.
Our president just fixed that problem. He made the Trump accounts, so now anybody who has a child can get their $1,000 investment in the United States, since that's going directly into the stock market. That meets Mo's standard.
Great. Yeah, great. Fantastic.
But Mo, you have to recognize that this utterly failed in post-Civil War when the South was trying to implement these poll tests, because the question always ends up becoming, what information is the pertinent information that everybody needs to know?
I didn't base my criteria on information. And by the way, I'm taking a step down from the monarchy to engage in this. Okay, how do we fix this shit show we currently have? It's not about information, right? Because if you base it on information, and you don't have some sort of civic duty behind it or something, some sort of metric to say, okay, you deserve this, then it's just everyone gets a right without duty. That's basically what voting is.
To put it nicely, I feel like you're saying a lot of very amorphous terms right now. You're saying a lot of things that I don't think have, and I'm not saying that because you just don't have any substance behind that. I want to dig into that substance if it's there, and I want to see what specific in the Mo monarchy, right, where everything is.
Well, no, I said I'm stepping down. Well,
Okay,
we're flipping between the two. We're flipping between the two. So are we talking about monarchy, or are we talking about fixing the shit show we currently have?
Okay, so
I'll
let's
talk
go to
about
fixing
either
the
or.
shit show that we're currently having. Okay, so let's talk about the current system. Okay.
Yeah.
What particular requirements would you need somebody to have in order to allow them to vote? And what specific things would disbar them from voting?
Well, I would say, disbarring that probably a long list. I mean, we could make simple things like felonies, things like that, right? Certain egregious crimes.
Felons already can't vote.
But I'm just giving you an example. That would be a good criteria to maybe bar someone. But as far as allowing them the right to vote, if you want to go down that avenue, I think we could do a few things that would help. We could raise the voting age, right? 35 or over, or maybe 30. We could make it, or if you have like civic duty, if you are in the military, that would grant, like, I guess you could say, like, not grandfather you in, but that would give you expedient rights to vote. Once again, you know, if you want to go and defend your country, why shouldn't you have the right to vote? Because you're invested in the future of the country. So these things like this, tangible things that show, okay, I care and I'm invested and I want the country to go on and survive. Something like that, right? So it would be things like that we could put in place that would fix a lot of issues.
Again, I half agree with you, but now it feels like I know that you're talking about our modern system and not monarchy, but there's a jumping back and forth going on here, because earlier you were saying that part of the reason that you wanted the monarchy, again, I know that's not what you're defending right now, but your reasoning was that these people are raised with the knowledge of how to run these institutions, and I somewhat agree with that. There's a part of me that leans toward an aristocratic kind of setting. But that said, the people going into the military because they want the shot to like invest and put into their country, these are not going to be the people that are, have been instilled with these values since birth.
Right. So it once going down, yeah, exactly. But the situation that we're discussing,
even though they're not meeting your meritocratic requirement for the other system.
Well, hold on. The situation we're discussing now, you can look at it as a band-aid in regards to a superior system. Just because I have what I consider to be a superior system doesn't mean I can't comment on what would make meaningful progress in the current shit show.
I agree.
You can also you can even compare it to, like, if you want to go biblical, right? You can talk about Levitical law, where a lot of it was, hey, a law is in place for a fallen world for a bunch of degenerates, but it wasn't condoning the acts necessarily, right? So
I just don't quite understand why this, like, oh, things are so bad right now, everybody's so degenerate. I mean, let's face it, the murder rate is going down, the robbery rate is going down, property crime is down.
I'm just thinking it's because we're all doom scrolling all the time. We can't even rob or kill anybody.
Well, like, I mean, I think that's actually part of it, though. I think that there is
spiking back up. Mo has some valid points here, and
well, no, let me finish what I was saying, please. I think that as a whole, when you look at our society and when you look at the trends that our society has been going through, the time that I would call the time of degeneracy would have been like the late 80s and the 1990s, when all of these rates that I was just talking about were through the roof compared to what they are now.
60s, when the murder rates were through the roofs and you had to worry about pipe bombs everywhere.
Well, yeah, the 60s would be worse in that regard. Yeah,
the 60s were really bad. We forget how bad the 60s were.
But my point.
Well, hold on. You say that
now,
but we have millions upon millions upon millions of ABs a year. Okay, so under a Christian paradigm, I would consider that extremely degenerate.
True, and it's kind of under the cover of some kind of medical procedure rather than mass killing.
Right, and then that goes to my point, what Rex just brought up. It's when you reframe a lot of things, yeah, you can make statistics looks amazing. You can make, if you have situations where they don't prosecute all these guys that are burning cities down and they let them off, then what? Oh, well, they're not charged with anything, so that doesn't go towards the statistic. So this idea that everything is fine, no, I don't agree.
I don't think
agree. I think it's going.
No, but I think that it's one thing that we can see is that fewer and fewer people per capita on a national level are going and doing these things. It's just factually true that compared to a couple of decades, even 3 decades ago, we are living in a broadly safer society than what existed in those times. And I just don't see how that is indicative to things becoming more degenerate. I guess that it's also partially because I'm not a Christian. I'm not going to look at things from the same.
Yeah, I would consider millions and millions of deaths a year to completely innocent people pretty degenerate.
Well, even for what Ayden would consider post 2021, there has been an uptick. It is not as high as it was in the 80s or 90s, but the trend has started going back up in terms of murder rate.
I saw in 2025 to 2026 that it was going down.
Relative to when?
No, I said. So that was 2025, 2026.
Relative to 2020?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the data where it compares it to. Yeah, 2020, 2021 is what it compares it to.
So just curious. I guess I think I understand Rex's position when it comes to voting blocks. But Ayden and Chapingro, do you consider yourselves more right leaning voting, left leaning, centrist? What
I'm left of center.
left of center? Okay.
I am a strong, old school Burkean conservative. If you wish to call me a neocon, I'm perfectly happy with that.
Maybe like a paleocon, something like that.
No, not a paleo, because again,
No?
the paleos are basically saying that our system is invalid and it's no longer working. I wholeheartedly
Okay.
reject that. I think people like to complain, especially as their stance in life gets better and better. The more little things seem harder and worse, and oh, I need the government to come and save me, or oh, this whole thing is broken and we just need to throw it to the wolves to start over. Like, this is all just kind of childish to me, and I need people to be more self-responsible, look ourselves in the mirror and say, we are getting what we would, like, what we want. There is no other system in which we as humans making choices would get anything better because we're already getting it.
What about the multitude of things where the American voting public effectively doesn't have a choice on what it wants to pursue in terms of foreign policy?
That's what we want. That's part of why I agree with Moe's position that there are benefits to the monarchy. We do want situations that it's not just the whims of the demos. The whims of the demos are what get you the Peloponnesian War.
No, it's not even necessarily the whims of the demos, because the whims of the demos are that the federal minimum wage needs to increase. It's the vast majority of Americans that say that the federal minimum wage needs to increase, and that it has needed to increase for well over a decade at this point. And yet there's no action on the federal level to enact that. So that right there is a demonstration of the idea that the majority of people wanting something in of itself does not constitute a change of that on an institutional level if sufficient strength exists to lobby against that. And that's why I would make the argument that on an individual anecdotal level, while perhaps me and you might be experiencing what I would
opposite
consider...
direction, Reagan set the Republican Party on the track of getting Supreme Court justice. We ended up getting 3, 4. We ended up getting more than we expected. But that is because from every election, from Bush 1 all the way through Trump, part of the right-wing party was specifically voting to get a Supreme Court justice. These things, we do always have say. It's not always the easiest thing to see. And as Americans, we have to recognize that we are the employee class, the employer class, not the employee class. And as the employer, we don't just get to bitch about, oh, I didn't get what I wanted and he was mean to me and all that other stuff. We have to recognize that we're already getting all of the benefits of the system.
So why hasn't the federal minimum wage increased?
Well, I would actually agree partially with Chapingro on this, right? That's why currently when I look at politicians, I'm kind of a by the issue guy, right? Like, I don't believe that any politician we vote in is going to do all the things that I want. It's just not reality. And I don't think any one politician, any one politician is going to fix everything. But I do think that if, respond to you, Rex, if we go with the monarchy that I think would work, at least you would have someone in there that is guided by a moral system that would right the ship in the right direction, and it wouldn't be the whims of the people that just decide what they want.
So,
like ABs for everyone.
What would be the process of taking America as it stands now and turning it into the monarchy you envision, practically?
The same process that I explained that is one of the major flaws in what we currently have. You would have to collectivize with the people, and over the course of time, you get 2/3, and you just take the Constitution and you change it to what you want it to be.
So
democracy.
Another, yeah. Essentially.
So you use democracy. Got it.
And the
Good.
majority, if the majority of people,
Right.
well,
No,
anyways,
that's actually no. This is a key point, right? Whether anyone wants to admit it or
No, I know
realizes
you
it, even
guys think that
we
you're
are
being
in a
incredibly
race.
Clever. You think you're being
No.
incredibly
We're in a
clever.
race. We're in a race, and whoever pulls the sword from the stone first is going to dictate however long this experiment goes on.
Once
And
again,
so,
this is not the first rodeo. Like, people have already had this thought. We knew about this going in, and Ayden, I think, will probably lean more into the systems philosophy that I'm sure, Mo, that you would ridicule us for. But part of the built-in structures are not only the systems, but we had gentlemen's agreements, because we understood that at the end of the day, these things are not like paper doesn't make any darn bit of difference. I'm sorry. It's really going to come down to, are the people doing the thing which you were scoffing at earlier, which was, are we pretending that we're civilized people in a society? If the answer is yes, then you get a good society. If the answer is no, you don't.
So, another one of the issues, and the federal minimum wage is certainly a big one, but as of now, about 60% of Americans hold a view against the continual support of Israel as a state. And I think that it's kind of telling that although for the last little while now, a smaller majority, but a majority nonetheless of Americans were against the policies of supporting Israel as a state, that in spite of that, the American voting public has essentially no choice whatsoever on whether Israel is going to get supported.
What do you mean?
Whether
no
you vote for
choice?
Democrat. I mean that if you vote Democrat, you're going to get somebody who supports Israel, but waves the finger at them every once in a while and says, Israel, you can't do that, but doesn't really do anything to them when they bomb another neighborhood full of children, right? Or the Republican.
Now you're doing the socialist thing. Like, you can already do that. You could have voted for Green Party if you
He's
wanted
Canadian
to.
left of center, so, temper your expectations.
Canadian
They have
Canadian
even more
adjacent.
left-wing options than we do. They're left-wing. They have an entire smorgasbord of left-wing.
Yeah,
options.
but the problem is that the Democratic Party in America is not left of center. The Democratic Party is certainly to the left of the Republican
Oh my
Party.
goodness. Ayden,
No, they're both
if-
right.
If you keep
They're
it
both right,
up, I'm going to agree with Mo and
That's fine.
and push
That's
for
fine.
the monarchy, because
That's fine, but
really what you're showing is the broad ignorance of people in our society about basic civics. This is basic civics.
Well, you
People
can
talk
call me
about
ignorant,
AIPAC.
or you could demonstrate why I'm ignorant.
Okay,
right?
AIPAC. This is always brought up. Oh, they're influencing, and Israel has so much power. And
Oy
influence,
vey.
blah, blah, blah.
No, actually, I don't think Israel. I think it's the exact opposite. I don't think that Israel holds a disproportionate power over America. I think America holds a disproportionate power over Israel, and America is using Israel as a vassal state in the Middle East in order to prosecute
Wait.
what it wants in the Middle East.
That's
Wait.
a darn good
Hold
start.
on.
It's
a new
Hold
one.
on. Hold on. Wait.
Kind
Wait
of.
a minute. How can you say that when admittedly damn near every politician has an AIPAC representative, and Ted Cruz went on an interview and said that he got into politics in order to defend Israel? What are
guys
you
making
talking about?
exactly my
Because-
point. Who
because-
funds AIPAC? Who funds
Because
AIPAC?
can I finish what I was saying, please?
No.
Okay,
Who funds
never
AIPAC?
mind.
Go ahead, Ayden.
The point that I'm making is that those people are very supportive of Israel, and Israel has a lot of interests in the United States. But that would be true of literally any colonial organization of any country. When the British were dealing with their colonial empires overseas and had colonies that they had vested interests in, there were people from those colonies that came back to Britain and advocated for their colonies to be treated favorably and to have policies that are advantageous for them. That's not going to be the case in the modern context.
That's democracy.
America, right, but the point that I'm making is that America treats Israel right now the exact same way that they would have treated Iraq if George W. Bush had actually won things out the way that he thought that he was going to in his mind, and they had actually fully toppled the governments. Well, they obviously toppled the Hussein regime, but if they'd actually been able to sustainably build an ally in that country, they would be treating them very, very similar, if not exactly the same, that they are to Israel.
I think a small example of that would be like how Netanyahu wanted to go into Rafah. And I think Mo is talking to his audience.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I was just commenting to someone. We're talking about Trump and him being a god king forever.
Go ahead, Rex.
Yeah. So, okay, now I'm off. But what I'm saying is the example that I think is a small microcosm of what Ayden's getting at is how Bibi Netanyahu wanted to go into Rafah and Biden stopped him, which would appear to support Ayden's point, and also the fact that Israel probably wanted to strike a long time ago, and the one thing stopping them would have been the U.S. government decade after decade. Is that fair?
Didn't Reagan get on the phone with them when they were about to attack? I believe it was either Syria or Palestine, and basically told them to knock it the hell off, and then they did it. Which is the thing. It's not that Israel has an undue amount of power in the largest, most well-established superpower on the earth that it just magically got overnight. No, that's not what happened.
Right. It's not like Israel has more money than us and we're dependent begging on Israel.
Right.
But we didn't, hang on, Ayden, before you go too far, we didn't create Israel of today either. They basically put themselves on the map, and because there was the whole kerfuffle about the USSR and trying to get influence in the Middle East at the time, it wasn't until the 60s that we finally got on board with Israel.
I mean, America did have a role to play. It wasn't a large one, at least in comparison to the British and the French.
Their
but
first
America
set of planes that they bought were from a USSR vassal state. Because again, we were not that heavily influential in their very beginnings and buddings of a nation. Are we really going to do Israel-Palestine, though?
No, I didn't want to get into IP or anything like that on here. The point that I'm trying to make is that, in my opinion, the American voter has effectively...
Turn my camera on. I've been facing the wall this entire time. Sorry, continue.
Has effectively no choice when it comes to voting for those. And yeah, you do technically have the choice to vote for Green Party or vote for another organization.
Earlier, do you want virtual representation where it's like I elect my person to directly do what I want? Because I would say that the fact that you don't have a choice is a clear indication that basically everybody across party lines recognizes that this is good for us.
Except I just told you that 60% of the American populace is opposed to supporting Israel.
And again, I'm yes, the American populace, which is why I'm willing to give credence to Mo, because I would want our populace to be much more educated about the state of affairs.
No, I don't think we should support an apartheid state. I don't think that's a good idea.
Oh my goodness. All right.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
hey,
so
who's the one country that supported apartheid South Africa again?
Hold on.
Who's the one country?
I'm not opposed to an Israel, Palestine, U.S., British, Russia, discussion, but this is about theory of government in general. So before we get too off the rails of like, do we like Israel or do not like Israel, let's get back to how it's
Shut
relevant.
it down.
Well, he's trying to point out that this is how our system is not working, and I'm trying
Hold
to
on,
say...
let me go get my
He got the
Daily Wire.
call.
Don't get a gavel.
Hello? Yeah, okay.
You want those 7,000 shekels? You better shut this shit down right now.
God, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Sorry, continue.
As if Mo didn't get the call from Hamas. But anyway, so...
It was ultimately
we want the
about
monarchy, baby. Okay.
Yeah, like this was ultimately a point regarding government. I do want to point that out.
Right. This is that. Again, I'm not opposed to it, but this is not the topic. The topic tonight is how it is relevant to the theory of government in general, how we think we should apply government, why it works best, and I think Mo is bringing up an interesting discussion that we don't always have, which is monarchy examined from the standpoint of the Enlightenment and the American Revolution and things like that. So I think that's the most interesting part, and especially the aspect of voting, representation, and if representation is real or better if done by a ruling class versus done by a system of checks and balances with a mixture of republic and democratic mechanisms. So, Chapingro, where were you going with this? I'm going to pass it to you.
Well, since you are doing that recap, I'm curious, can we all agree that if we could have a true good philosopher king, that we didn't have to worry about lineages and all of these other whatever mechanisms that were in place, if we could have a philosopher king, that somehow would be the preferred system?
Yeah, I think you would. No, obviously, my idea would be there would be checks and balances, but yes.
Yeah, Ayden?
Sorry, I just stepped away for a second. What is the question?
The question is, if we could have a true philosopher king, again, this doesn't happen. You and I agree this doesn't happen, and that's why we're hesitant. But if we could, wouldn't we agree that that is probably the ideal system?
Yeah. I mean, ideally, that would be the best form of human government if it were possible and sustainable.
Okay, so we at least have that under our belts. We all kind of agree that, you know, if we could have the good that was durable and sustainable, that we would go for that.
If Leto II from Dune just decided that he was going to take the reins of humanity and just lead everything, then yeah, I think that's probably best for everybody. And nobody else on this panel gets that reference. I apologize.
Not a Dune reference. I'm sorry, bud.
I don't want to fight big worms, okay? This is so no. I don't. And I don't want to wear the weird thing in the nose. That just looks lame. I don't like that.
Iran has the spice melange. We need to go over there and grab the spice melange.
Yeah, that spice. They've got all the spice. We're going to go over there. We're going to bomb the hell out of them. We're going to take it, and we're going to get all the spice.
I want to let everybody know we're renaming Arrakis to Trump Rakis right now. It's getting renamed.
Right.
You guys are trying to raise my cortisol levels, aren't you?
My eyes will be bluer than this microphone here.
Oh, not the right way of doing things.
Right.
Regardless, like, I think we have a clear historical lineage that has brought us to this point where we recognize that if we could have this wonderful system, we would take this wonderful system. But given how history has played out over and over and over again, that we take the updates as they've come down the pike, and one of those updates was starting with Hobbes, which I'm surprised I don't hear more about Hobbes from you, Mo, because it's closest to your ideology with the chained Leviathan. So we start with this chained Leviathan, and then we go through to Locke.
I need to do more reading, admittedly. So yeah, but my approach to this, and I think I told you this last time on the stream, is going to be admittedly, I'm not really, I guess, formidable in political discussion, right? I'm basically coming to this with a very just logical, kind of philosophical mindset in discussing this. So there is a lot of gaps as far as reading stuff, but I will take your advice and read into that.
Actually, I lied. It wasn't Hobbes first. It really would have been Aquinas first, laying out the oh God, what was the name for it? The scholarism in the church?
Scholasticism?
Scholasticism, thank you. That's what starts to lay out these ideas that we start to unpack later on in the Enlightenment. But we get these thinkers who are thinking about these ideas and asking, can we make this logical? Can we make this make reasonable sense instead of just being because some guy said I told you so?
Well, it's important to remember that the reason why we have this modern system is because we forced the old systems down. I don't think that those old systems would have relented without a whole lot of violence and a whole lot of bloodshed. And it's almost without exception that you see that throughout human history, that almost all of these absolute monarchies were done away with as a direct result of a massive conflict. So unfortunately, it does seem like violence to a certain degree is oftentimes necessary in order to push that forward. But I would make the argument that that short-term violence is a necessary evil when you look at the broader context of how much more comparatively peaceable a society with representation is compared to an autocratic society.
Yeah. From the Protestant Calvinist perspective, the only legitimate way for us to do some kind of violent revolution would be if you had what's called a lesser magistrate, where somebody is not necessarily the top of the government, but the top of the government is doing something corrupt to the great degree of the oppression of the people, to the extent that somebody who's a lesser magistrate, who does actually have legitimate governing authority, can lead such a revolt, for lack of a better term, can lead a counter action against that government, because otherwise you don't have the limiting principle of a society that can otherwise just revolt from the grassroots at any time. So I think that's just worth at least putting out there.
So like in a modern monarchy, that would be something like the judiciary branch would initiate a removal process.
Yes, if you have somebody who already
have to be violent.
Yeah, well,
right.
Yeah, if you have, and obviously avoiding violence would be the ideal, but if you had somebody that had actual government power, an actual government position that could lead such a revolt, that could lead such a force against the oppressive force, then that would be a legitimate response to it, rather than just like the people having the French Revolution every 10 years.
I'm glad you brought up the French Revolution, because the French Revolution to me is a dual-edged sword of truth, one that we should all imbibe. On one end, it says, it doesn't matter how powerful the government is, if the people decide that it's time for that government to be done, it will be. Because
I agree with that.
Talk about power discrepancies between the French peasantry and the nobles of the time. Like, modern people say something like, you would never be able to take on the U.S. government with their F-15 or F-35s. And it's like, I'm sorry, yes. Eventually it would be.
Well, what you see with the French Revolution, though, at the same time, is there has to be a critical mass that's reached of people that are disenfranchised with the government, and that critical mass has to extend to the military. If you do not get the military on your side, at least to a certain extent, then the revolution is just not going to get off the ground, unfortunately. Without exception, that is always the case.
And moreover, part of that is getting a big enough critical mass means that you're going to get people who are indirectly affected via the military. So if the military is being asked to go off people, like their own citizens, that becomes very difficult to maintain, again, as we saw in the French Revolution.
Right. Same with the Russian Revolution. And what you find when you see these revolts taking place, you see a group of, at least with the French Revolution, you see with the establishment of, what was it? It wasn't the consulate. That's Napoleon. It's the directorate. That's what it was.
Robespierre.
Yeah, Robespierre. Before Robespierre takes power, though, there's a brief time where the directorate does kind of start to go a little moderate, where they are talking about, okay, we need to establish a constitutional monarchy, where the monarch is there, but they have these checks and balances that are going to keep them there. But people like Robespierre, just like people like Vladimir Lenin in the Russian context, ended up winning out over the moderates and ended up pursuing a much more dramatic form of revolution rather than just reform. And that's an important aspect of things as well. When you look at revolution, it's all too easy to look at the people at either extreme, either the ultra-conservatives who want society to remain exactly the same, or the ultra-radicals who want to see a society that's entirely unrecognizable than the one before. Whereas in the reality, the vast majority of people in any one of these revolutionary contexts are somewhere in the middle. They're the moderates. There has to be a critical mass of those people that are won over in order to actually have it carried forward. Because you're not going to convince people on the extreme end of the argument to somehow go over to the other side. It's just not going to happen.
Not until Horseshoe kicks in. You don't know what you are. But so we do have a comment from the chat really quick that is fundamental, of course. Darth Theranis, and of course you can give just one word answers if you want, because it's kind of, I think it's kind of past the point. But Darth Theranis, I don't know if that's how he pronounces it. He says, just answer the question you're all dogging. why ought we have government? My answer would be Romans 13. Mo would probably have something along those lines, but Chapingro and Ayden, I'm not sure what your framework would look like.
Well, yeah, go ahead, because I mean, my question would be, what would you?
He's an anarchist.
What would you have?
Sure.
Anarchy. That would be the so.
I
mean, not even going to like scripture, like just logically, what would that look like if you don't have some sort of like government structure to keep things in order, to defend the nation, etc. Like what? It's just anarchy? Like I don't know. I'd be curious what his take is on that.
Yeah, my response, and I humbly think that Darth Uranus is a troll, but I will answer that question in good faith irregardless, and say that based on the fact that you have not spent every waking moment of your life trying to save up enough money to be able to buy a plot of land somewhere in the Alaskan wilderness where you can go live your own little independent am-prim lifestyle that's completely independent of everybody else, kind of tells me that you yourself kind of enjoy being a beneficiary of society. You kind of like this whole social contract thing that we got going on, where you're able to drive on a road that you didn't directly build and go into a building that you didn't directly build and access services that you didn't directly fund.
You didn't. I was just thinking that. You didn't build those roads. You didn't build that.
Like, come on, dude. And I'm not even like, that's not even on the same level of you are critical of capitalism, yet you participate in it. It's not even that, because when it comes to capitalism or communism, at least a communist says that they want to live in some sort of society, in some sort of social contract where they cooperate with other people. It's the anarchists and the like radical libertarians that I really do scratch my head at and go, why do you think that?
Hey now. Communism and ANCAPs are two sides of the same coin. Both forget that humans
in true communism.
Both do treat human beings like machines. I will give you that. They kind of treat them like robotic numbers that can just kind of be moved around and done with whatever the hell you want.
Well, they also treat them like God. Like in the case of libertarians, it's myself as the individual am the crux of what I'm looking for. Whereas if it's communists, they're like the people as a collective are the crux and the God and the ought of the day.
I would also say that capitalism and ANCAPs are two sides of the same coin, because in spite of what a lot of people assume the end goal of communism is, which is, oh, we have this giant government that overreaches and spies on you all the time. Actually, according to Marx, the end goal of communism is the abolition of the state. They don't want there to be a state. They don't want there to be a country at the end goal of communism.
Right, which is part of why it's, it's so mind-bending. I understand it, and yet to try and imagine it is still difficult at the same time. But did you say capitalism and ANCAP?
Yeah.
Or sorry, communism and ANCAP, pardon me.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
Communism.
Because I was going to say, distinguish that for me, because if it's just like pure capitalism, that is ANCAP.
Sorry. No, I misspoke, pardon me.
Unacceptable.
But just really quick, I know that you asked this a while ago, Rex, but to answer your question you had a while ago for Gibbon and why he argued that the Roman Empire fell due to Christianity, a lot of it had to do with the idea that he believed that Christianity diverted people's attention away from service to the state to service to the church and service to their God. The idea that this world and the people inhabiting it and the things inhabiting it aren't really all that worthwhile compared to this new, cool, eternal world that's coming soon, That was also one of his arguments, was that people were distracted away from the actual affairs in favor of religion.
I would say that's a caricature of Christianity, right? Because one of the Christianity's pillars is duties, right?
No, I'm just telling you what Gibbons...
Right.
Yeah. No, I get. I'm just saying that would be my critique of what he's saying. Like, I don't think he had a correct understanding of Christianity.
Correct. Yeah. No, I agree with what Mo's saying, and I would add that among what Christ said was render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's. And so there's no inherent contradiction in those things, because we're supposed to subject ourselves to the governing authorities insofar as it does not force us to sin. And now we can, that's another the whole live stream debate. We're just talking about theory of government right now.
Right.
But in terms of, I would agree that his thing is, if it led to the fall because they weren't like subservient enough. I mean, and you want to tie it to Christian principles, I think you're going to have a hard time. If you want to tie it to what was done by Christians, I think I would need a lot more information to buy into his pitch.
So the other ones were, he thought that because, don't get me wrong, there was a state cult associated with the Roman Empire prior to Christianity.
It's hard to contribute when you keep getting killed too, when you're lying food.
He makes the argument that after the Edict of Milan, and especially after the decree of Theodosius I, that makes Christianity the state religion of the Roman Empire, that there's a level of resources that are being diverted away from things like the defense of the empire toward propping up the church and expanding the church's influence by building new monasteries, building new churches. There's also the idea that a lot of Rome's soldiery was essentially converted into this new priestly class, this new class of priests and monks and clergymen that didn't exist prior to that point. And I'd say probably the last one I could come up with off the top of my head was the internal dissension and conflict that occurred within the church. He made the argument that because there was so many of these controversies about Christology and about the role of the church and how powerful it ought be or not be, that distracted and diverted a lot of resources away from defense of the empire. So those were his main arguments for why Christianity contributed to it. And I agree with some of them more than others. I would definitely agree that the controversies of the early church definitely did, at least partially, kind of distract from the fact that, hey guys, the enemy's kind of at the gates. They're kind of trying to take all of our stuff, and we're too busy arguing about whether Jesus was God or not. But for some of the other ones, I think that they're a little bit weak. Yeah, I think the idea that Christians just don't care about anything within the world is kind of demonstrated not to be true, just based on, meeting Christians in your everyday life. I don't think a lot of Christians are like monks out in the desert with literally nothing to their name whatsoever. No,
so, we're definitely not in the West, especially. We're definitely not ascetic, of any degree. I mean, there's no arguing that.
Can I give a shot at the question about why we need government?
Oh yeah.
We need government for the same reason we need lungs, because it is a evolved adaptation of our species to self-manage.
Evolved adaptation of our species to self-manage.
Yep. So again, I'm going to Hobbes's, Locke's, Rousseau's Man in the State of Nature, and we're asking, what is man in the state of nature? And I think Hobbes went a little bit too far, although I think he's mostly correct in pointing out that if it's all just everybody for everybody, it's a free-for-all, we'll be constantly at war. Locke was a little bit more restrained on that, and he said, no, people make deals with each other. Like you don't have to force people to do business and make deals with each other. So it would still be pretty brutish and nasty, but it wouldn't be so bad, because at least there would be some modicum of like socializing and self-engaging amongst the populace. And then we get to Rousseau.
Chapingro, I'm sorry, I know you're cooking here. Can you state that one more time? I want to write it down, because I'm trying to like conceptualize this sort of thing. It's evolved. Say it again.
Oh, I don't know if I could exactly restate what I said, but it's an evolved system for self-regulation.
System for self-regulation.
Do you think it's true there's some kind of correspondence with how people in a given society, in a given culture, the less they control themselves, the more they're controlled by the government, the more they relent to a government that can become more and more tyrannical when the people are in more of a weakened state, like a weakened moral character or a weakened
you're asking
sense of purpose?
Me if it's true that you trade freedoms for security, and the answer is absolutely yes.
Okay.
That is always the trade-off that is made.
And they will have neither, right?
If they make the trade, eventually they will have neither. Yeah, that's the worry. That's the concern. So
Right.
by the time we get to Rousseau, and just to try to wrap this up, I know I was rambling for a while, but Rousseau is pointing out that man in the state of nature is not necessarily just at war. He's actively making deals and engaging and creating government because that's what we do. We want to create systems that we can all engage in and play in, and it's like nobody wants to go to the playground that's all rusty and broken and you're worried about getting shanked when you go
Speak
there.
for yourself.
I'm sorry.
So I do have a
I shouldn't
question
speak
though
for
about.
everybody.
I do have a question though. This evolved system for self-regulation. The verbiage "evolved" implies. I mean, would you say then it could evolve in a different way than we currently have?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I would say that you see differences in types of governments depending on things like geographical location. I agree with Montesquieu here.
Well, government
So
is
if it
downstream of
can
anthropology. That's what's going on. Is
Okay,
we-
Jared Diamond.
So if it
I
can
don't know what that
evolve
is.
in a different way, then is this a descriptive claim or?
Yeah. This is descriptive. I'm pointing to the fact
Okay.
that you cannot point to any society in history that did not have a government.
Got it. Okay.
So are you saying that we? I don't know if I want to go this right. Are you saying we need a government, or that a government is just the natural result that rolls out of humanity, or just both? Is that what you're getting at?
I'm going to answer your question with a question. I'm sorry. I know this is annoying. Do
fine.
you
How
need
dare you.
lungs?
Yes.
Okay, then yes. On that level, we need it. It is not a choice. You do not get human societies without government.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Aiden was
But-
born without
but-
lungs. Hold on.
Couldn't you? But hold on. But the on the premise though, and maybe I'm just thinking about this too much. But on the premise that it's an evolved system, and you admitted that it could evolve in a different way than we currently see, who's to say that it wouldn't evolve in a way that is not really? It could evolve in a way that is undesirable. It could evolve in a way that is. Because self-regulation, what does that mean? By whose standard, right? It would be the people, the populace who think that the self-regulation that they're implementing is correct, right?
May I answer?
So,
Or Chapingro, if you want to answer, go ahead. But
well, I was asking Chapingro.
Everybody
Oh,
here
sorry.
is a smart cookie, so I'm down to hear from it. But if you wanted to hear specifically from me, could you
yeah. I'm sorry.
run that by me just one more time? Like it sounds
Yeah.
like
Okay.
you're
So the
asking,
idea,
couldn't this go wrong?
the idea that it's an evolved system for self-regulation, then you have to ask, okay, you already admitted that it could evolve in different ways. Then it also begs, kind of the big question of what is self-regulation? That seems to be whatever the current populace decides is a proper regulation.
I mean, that is true on some level. That will always be the case. Now,
Right.
It seems like what
So
you're
then
asking
if
is
you
there
have
something more
like,
meaningful there, is there a there? Is there a correct way, or is it just the whims? And that's where I go back to natural law, and I go back to Aquinas, and I say, yes, we are slowly but surely uncovering and discovering what the correct way is. And I would argue that given the strength and might of the Western world, that the teachings of the Christian culture that we all live in, that we've all are a part of, that even Dawkins will admit he's a cultural Christian, that was the precursor to how we got here. We got here because we had good ideas, we worked on those good ideas, and slowly but surely.
Right,
it's
but
being
I would
passed
argue
as we
that-
move forward.
I would
Dawkins
argue
was
that
just a
Christian
Christian
ethics don't
thinking.
evolve.
I would say
Right.
Christian ethics absolutely evolve.
I would have to agree with Ayden here, but I recognize that is a touchy subject. So
I mean, like the
Yeah,
Christianity-
because
like,
here's
like,
the
Protestantism.
example, right? Like
Protestantism.
under this idea, then I could even say like, okay, maybe to certain societies, that's true. Or I mean, you could look at societies like the Aztecs, right? They believed that their evolvement of self-regulation was splitting people's chests open on top of a temple. So
and they had a government, right?
Right, and if 90% of the Aztec society thought that Huitzilopochtli was a bunch of bullcrap, then Huitzilopochtli wouldn't be worshipped anymore.
This
Yeah,
is
Right.
true. But, they had a
then
government,
the
right?
Christians came, but the Christians came around and said, "Knock that shit off," and they put them to the sword.
Yeah, and
Because
they enslaved them and put them in mines.
And so they
yeah.
removed one system of self-regulation with another system of self-regulation. So at every point along the line, we have governments here because this is an evolved, I kind of want to call it a trait, but it's not really a trait. It's an evolved methodology that every human society has. The fact that you can't...
How is... So wait, you seem to be under the... You said that Christians' ethics evolved. Can you give me an example of that?
I'm saying our government...
And maybe we're getting off topic. I'm just curious.
We are getting off topic. I was gonna wait a couple
That's
more
fine.
sentences.
That's fine.
All I would
this in.
say on that before it goes too far in the other direction is that there's literally not one single set of ideas in all of human history that does not change and evolve over time. There's not one. And go ahead.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Given a
I've asked
sufficient
you how
length of
Christian
time.
ethics evolved, but
He's giving us...
once again,
I
that's
think
another discussion.
I think we're a little wide of scope. I think Ayden and I had
That's fine.
a long public discussion about certain aspects of that. But yeah, all right. So I think we've kind of covered a lot of bases here tonight. I think this has been a really cool stream. But I think we all also have to catch some Z's. Would you guys like to go through closing statements and then wrap it up, or maybe hang out and see if we want to open up the panel or something like that?
Yeah, I did first, so I'll let somebody else go first. Thank you very much. I will just say for having me on re-examination. This has been really cool.
Absolutely. I knew it would be a good combo. It was a great conversation. And I don't know why I'm talking. Who wants to go next? Chapingro and MoeRebuttal. You want to do a rock, paper, scissors for the second opening statement?
Mo has seniority, so I'll let him go last.
Senor Mo?
No.
Unless you want to go first, Mo.
No, by all means. I don't have much of a closing statement, so by all means, it gives me more time to think, I guess.
I don't either. I was just going to say, we have seen lots of change in government systems since the Greeks and Thucydides all the way, through the European cycle and the Enlightenment. And what has been consistent through all of this is as we ping pong back and forth between ideas of what the proper government system is, slowly but surely we are making incremental steps toward arguably better systems in the way that Ayden laid out. There's less war, there's less bloodshed that would only occur because you dishonored my name and a man's name is his country. So I would argue that we have a great system. The biggest problem with our system is that people don't appreciate it enough to understand how it actually is intended to function. And if we did that, we would not be saying, oh, it's all a wash and we need to start over. We would be saying, oh, thank goodness we had the benefit of millennia of human progress to put us in this place.
Yeah. So yeah, well, first off, Rex, thanks for putting this together. Everybody, Chapingro, Ayden, appreciate the exchange and discussion. Really enjoyed this. So thanks for having me. Went over quite a bit of territory here. Once again, I'll say, obviously politics really isn't my wheelhouse. I'm trying to get better at it, but I do appreciate the opportunity to discuss my ideas. When it comes to where we currently are, going back to a previous point, I do think the U.S., when you look at the system and what we have in place, we are on a timeline, and depending on who gets to that sword first is going to dictate quite a bit for the future of whatever this thing eventually turns into. So, the idea of a monarchy, I think, is a good one, but also I do see the merit of trying to put things in place to fix the current system. Maybe voting ages, having some sort of merit-based system to get the right to vote. Democracy gives everyone a voice, but there's no guarantee anyone knows what they're talking about, right? The system, the monarchy system, limits power to those trained to lead. It has, you can have constrained. It can be constrained by law. it can have a removable system. So why would we prioritize equal input over competent outcomes, right? So that's my whole point on that. But I do also have to be realistic. There's only so much that can be done in my lifetime. So I do think there are some things in the short term that we can use to correct some of the failures we see in our current system. Because once again, the constitutional republic, as talked about in the Felder's Papers, it really only works if you have a moral populace.
So, and thank you, by the way. I will say, Mo, you're probably the person I disagreed with more than anybody else here, but I think you made
Fair.
some very adequate points. And although I don't agree with them, I think you did a good job of articulating them. That being said, I will say that in my read of human history, there's been a variety of different ways where governments have tried to derive their legitimacy. Some just simply try to say that there's some amorphous god out there that's looking after their affairs. The Chinese tried to justify it with the mandate of heaven, specifically linked to the natural world that they lived around. The pharaohs did the same with the Nile in Egypt.
I think they call that precept government.
Yeah. But there's a variety of ways with which governments have tried to derive their legitimacy, most having some form of divine right attached to them. And I would agree with Chapingro in saying that the idea that governance stems not from some divine entity, but rather from popular sovereignty is an evolution of that. And is it the final form? Is it even the best form of governance for humanity? I mean, who knows? We're a species that, in my view, has existed for about 200,000 years and has only really had the means of organizing civilization for the last 5 or 6 at most. So we're very new to this game as a species. We're working a lot out right now as far as that's concerned. And while I think that there is certainly an argument to be made that this form of governance is the best one that we have arrived at so far, I don't know whether or not it's going to be the best one, period. And as a matter of fact, I would be a little bit saddened if this is the very pinnacle of what we can achieve as a species. I don't think that, though.
No, you think Pol Pot was the best we did.
That's right. That's right.
Typical progressive.
You wearing glasses there, Chapingro? Wearing glasses? You intellectual?
You know what happens to those intellectuals.
That's right. That's right. You're a disruptor. Is what you are.
Intellectuals are going to ruin the future. We need grunts. The future is grunts.
I did not say thank you, and thank you very much for bringing me on. As being new to this space, I didn't think about it in my outro. Everybody else is smarter and did the right thing, but I do want to thank you, Rex. You put an arm out there for me to bring me on, and I really appreciate that. And you other two guys have been absolutely phenomenal to talk to. So great interlocutors. I appreciate it.
Yeah, seriously. Great conversation, everybody.
Absolutely. All right, guys. I was thinking about opening it up, but I don't know who's going to show up. It seems like all the a lot of good friends came out, but also a lot of vampires and werewolves come out late at night. So I think I'm just going to call it a day on my end. But of course, you guys have your own streams going on. And of course, if anyone wants to jump on Moe's stream, Ayden's stream, or Chapingro and keep them late up at night, then that is your prerogative, and it's between you and them. But I, for one, will have to dip. So thank you all for coming. Even though I have differences with all you guys, I have fun having differences with people because you can engage it in a way for clarity and for understanding. There's a lot of things that, even if you don't agree with somebody's worldview, you can learn a lot of things about what's true along the way with things you disagree with. And things can shed light on different things you haven't understood to the best degree that it even shows things that you didn't know that you believed by contrasting it with ideas you've not heard before. So I also thank everybody in the chat, everybody in Chapingro's chat, everybody in Moe's chat, everybody in Ayden's chat. Thanks for showing up. Give everybody likes, subscribe to Chapingro, MoeRebuttal, and Ayden. And definitely we might look forward to dialogues like this in the future because this was fun and I would argue productive.
Yeah, I had a great time. And to your point, Rex, yeah, I do agree. This was great to kind of like test. This first time I've kind of presented this, so I really do appreciate the pushback, and it's revealed some things I can tighten up. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let's do it again. And
Yes,
maybe
for
next
sure.
time we can actually get into what we think we should move forward into. We did a
I
lot
think
of
that'd be good.
discussion about the where we are, which is good. We should always start with where we are. We should do that. But next time we can say, since Mo thinks we need to fix our ill-begotten land, we
How
can
do we
talk
go
about
about
how we
doing
can
that?
do those fixes. Yeah,
For sure. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Take care.
Have
See
a
you
good one,
guys.
guys. Good night.
appreciate it.
And that, my friends, is that. Thank you so much.